curriculum would include lessons from the Bible in reading and language arts textbooks. If this does,
I don't want to play it all, but for the most part, that is the gist of it. It's only like a 2-minute video, so there's about another 30 seconds or so of it. But and appreciate that underwater display, DJ Julio. Now I'm assuming Julio, you're in favor of this. But a couple of things I want to say that I got wrong earlier. First of all, it's not all students. It's K through 5. So only up to kindergarten. Only up to kindergarten. That was the first thing I got wrong. The second thing is it is optional, but there is an asterisk you would add to optional. It's optional for the students to do the schools to do this or not, but the schools that do partake in this receive $60 per student. So that's literally going to be thousands of dollars. So there is a huge incentive to do this. And with so many schools in the public arena being underfunded, you can assume that there are going to be schools that are going to partake in this that are not necessarily favorable to it, but they need the money. I mean, they're getting 60. Here's the first pushback. How might you feel if you're not Christian or you don't favor this? They're using your tax money to pay for schools that are willing to promote Christianity. So I do want to point that out because we always talk about we don't want our tax money going to this or going to that. They are doing this, and the benefit is going to schools that teach Christianity. So that is something that will come up. Nevertheless, I do want to tackle some of the statements in the comments, and I see that says Emma Watch NU says separation of church and state. I think we kind of voted that out. Apparently, we have voted down the separation of church and state. A lot of folks favor what's going on here in Texas. A lot of folks favor this. You heard her mention in the video that the states that surround Texas are doing stuff like this too. You heard her mention Oklahoma. You heard her mention Louisiana. I think Arkansas has done this. And many are suggesting this will be the pathway to additional states to partake in this as well. You've ever heard of the phrase the Bible Belt states? Well, guess where it's likely to happen? They call them Bible Belt for a reason. So if you're in Tennessee, Kentucky, Mississippi, Alabama, possibly Georgia, the Carolinas, you can expect there's a possibility that some of this may happen to a school near you. Nevertheless, I want to go straight to the comment section, or better yet, the callers, because I did get some of it wrong. It's House Bill 1605, kindergarten through 5th grade, the age where children are the most impressionable. I don't believe if you've done this to high school students, you could get away with it. You would probably be a revolt. But kindergarten through 5th grade, they're far more impressionable. It's easier to indoctrinate and put this stuff on them. So kindergarten through 5th grade, and as I said, it is somewhat optional with a carrot and stick approach. So I'm going to go to the box Bible Belt, where most of the hate takes place. Damn. Flynn says Bible Belt, where most of the hate takes place. Now, what are you suggesting there? Christianity and hate goes together? I don't know. DJ Julio, okay, I don't know what I just hit there, but DJ Julio, good evening. What did I do? Julio, can you hear me? Okay, I know what I just did. All right, there you go. Do you?
Yes, I'm here. Let me. Go ahead.
Yeah. Do you favor this?
I don't know if the word is favor. I think that. Hold on a second. I'm gonna get my better earpiece on.
By way of yes or no in the comments, how many of you folks, if you had to go yay or nay on this law, how many of you would go yay in favor of it or nay as a disapproval? By way of yay or nay in the comments, I'm curious to see how many folks favor this. Indoctrination, it says indoctrination, I thought you didn't want your kids indoctrinated. I don't. And you're being indoctrinated that Jesus Christ is your savior and God died for, Jesus died for your sins and all of that. That it is a way to indoctrinate children. Are you there, Julio? Are you ready?
Yep, I'm all good. Yeah.
Okay.
So I wouldn't go as far as saying that I'm for or against it. I guess I'm in the middle where it's like I don't think it's a horrible idea, um, especially if you're focusing the Bible around the Ten Commandments. Because the Ten Commandments go back to what I was saying to you back in August about um, teaching morality. If we can get people to live more of a moral stance at an earlier age, it might do good. It might not. It might not do shit.
Well, in regards to what you're saying, you know, the religion and teaching them the Ten Commandments can do good, and it teaches morality. As somebody pointed out, the Bible Belt states is where a lot of the hate takes place. I would have to ask you, if it's going to do good, why has it not in the past? I mean, there is a lot of hatred coinciding with religion throughout America's history. Why didn't it work in the past?
I'm not sure that I understand where the
Okay, let me say it this way. We know, like, let's say that, you know, whether we're talking about the oppression of women or the Jim Crow South, a lot of this stuff was predominantly done in heavily religious parts of this country. Why didn't the morality kick in then in the past? I mean, we can talk about how minorities were treated. Like I said, we can talk about how women were treated. Most of that stuff was heavily done in religious parts of this country. So if the Ten Commandments and all of this makes people tend to be more moral, why didn't it work then?
That's a good point. I don't have a good answer for you, and I can't really speak on it. I didn't live those times, and I haven't really researched anything that has to do with religion in those times.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, in regards to
there's
you,
there's bad in every decade, though.
I've never heard that said before. But I will say this in regards to you saying that you haven't researched the religion and things from that time. This is something I often say. Those folks that were oppressive or were abusive or whatever the case, you know, racist or whatever, they were reading from the same Bible, the same Ten Commandments as we do now. The Bible has not changed. The Ten Commandments have not changed. They were reading from the same with the same documentation as we do now, and they thought it was okay.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of that is so. I wouldn't call myself a religious man. I don't go to church on Sunday. I don't go any day during the week. In church, organized religion, I think, is our problem. I don't think that the Bible or the Ten Commandments is the problem. Organized religion, take it back to the days of the kings and queens. Any of the Christian religion was most of the Christian religion, in my opinion, was delegated by the king of the time.
Okay.
They had their scribes. They had their popes that would be in the castle with them, which they would call their scribes, and those scribes would note godly type stuff that happened in the region, and most of that stuff came from the kings and the queens.
Yeah, but
so I don't necessarily. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I'm still curious why you think this will encourage morality, though. As I said, there is no period throughout American history where being religious has indeed made the population more moral. In fact, we became a much more freer, less oppressive country the more we've gotten away from religion.
Yeah, definitely got into Sodom and Gomorrah. You're absolutely right. I don't disagree. I mean,
what do you mean by that?
Girls being boys, boys being girls, girls being boys. I mean, it's sex everywhere.
Yeah, what do you say? Sex is immoral?
I would say, in my opinion, frivolous sex is immoral. Yes.
What is frivolous sex? I'm curious. What is that?
If you're swiping right daily, you got issues. You got a moral high ground that is not there. You have no respect for yourself or the people you're laying with.
You do realize pastors and priests and cardinals, they were all swiping right, left daily. They were just doing it among their congregation, right?
Again, I told you, you're not going to win that one because I have zero interest in the organized religion. I don't.
Okay.
Listen, I agree with you. I agree with you. The popes and those people that have done dirty shit, it's gross. It's absolutely gross. Well, another reason why I don't go to church.
Yeah, but the reason why I asked you that, though, is I'm still trying to figure out where the morality comes in at. Like I said, no matter what decade you go back to, the further back you go, the more religious we were, and we were less moral the further back you go into that stuff.
I would challenge that statement by saying I think we were more controlled by the church than we are today.
Well,
Now, if you take my previous statement where I say I'm not for, I don't participate in organized religion. You're free to do what you want. I do not go to church, and I don't go to church because I don't like the indoctrination that comes along with it. Now, the indoctrination that comes along with it is every minister in the world reads from the same Bible and they interpret it their way. Well, which way is the right way?
yeah,
So if I
but
take myself
Julio,
and I
here's
go back real quick, I'm almost done.
Go ahead.
If I take myself and I go back to the preachings from the rocks, the 10 Commandments, 1 through 10, if I live my life that way, that's my moral high ground.
Okay.
I don't care about the church. I don't care about the mosque. I don't care about any of those things. They're all preaching what they want to preach. I live just off of 10.
Yeah. Now, the point I was going to make is this: because you said you're not necessarily preaching in favor of organized religion, just the Ten Commandments and the morality of it. If you get rid of the church, a lot of this stuff will go away. The only reason why this stuff remains around is because of the church. Because when you give people free will outside of the church, they stray away from this stuff. So you kind of need the church to keep telling the people that if you don't do this or do that, you're going to hell. Because if you leave it up to the people, they're gonna leave this stuff alone.
And see, and I believe in a lot of circumstances when it comes to the organized religion in the church, I believe for some people it's good because they can't get themselves to that 10 Commandments without the population or the congregation. Some people need that. I don't personally need that. I think it's good to get back on topic. I think it's a good thing if the Quran has 20, 10, 5 major rules that they live by, and then the rest is just stories. Give me what you're living by. And if we're teaching our young kids, we're a Christian nation, so of course Christianity is going to be the most outspoken thing that they're going to try to push. The morality they're going to try to push is Christianity. If we're teaching those kids the basis, those 10 Commandments, the ones that you have pulled up right behind you, I just noticed you had them pulled up, then we're teaching them a little thing called that moral high ground. It's moral high ground.
I don't get it. You know why I don't get it? Number one, this is the 10 Commandments. Number one is you shall have no other gods before me. Why does a kid need to know that?
Because you're taking your advice in life. You're putting your life behind the God that gave those commandments.
So if you got a Christian and a Muslim child that are friends, and they're being taught you should have no other God before me, you don't see where this might create some kind of conflict with? I mean, one person believes in Allah, the other person believes in God and Jesus Christ. You don't see where this might create conflict?
No, because an intelligent person, a person
they're kids, K through 5.
Right, and we're talking about teaching those kids values K through 5. That's what we're arguing here. Yes, I understand what you're saying. There could be some questions that Johnny has from Jimmy. Johnny being the Christian, Jimmy being the Muslim. Yeah, there's going to be some questions, but if you look at the Muslim religion and you go down through this, the only one they're going to have a problem with is number 1, because everything else they believe the same.
Really? You shall not, number 3, you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Why does a kid need to know that? That's the 3rd commandment.
Because it teaches them respect. Teaches them not to talk somebody out of their name.
What?
Let's get to the teachings of the 10 Commandments. I like this.
We're doing it. We're doing it. I agree. Thou shalt not kill, for instance, is a legitimate push for morality. But some of these are strictly religious, such as you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. I don't see where you're getting all this respect from.
What does that mean to say his name in vain?
To say his name when you don't need to say it.
Right. So, like, if you're damning something, or if you're saying, if you're being vulgar about something, that's the same thing as.
I don't see vulgarity in there. I don't see vulgarity or damning in there.
Let me finish. I'm sorry. It's Christianity. I was raised in it. As an adult, I went the same direction, but without the church. Okay.
Okay.
So I've got a lot of passion when it comes to this topic.
All right.
Similar to Trump. If if I am learning at a very early age that I don't take somebody out of their name, that I don't curse my mother, I don't curse their father, I don't curse my God. Like, you tell me why that's wrong. Why that I'm learning not to do that.
Here's where I'm baffled at. As I asked you earlier, when throughout American history has that commandment ever led people not to take folks' names out of? I mean, this has never changed the psyche of this country. There was a time historically where we were a lot closer to the Ten Commandments than we are now, and people were taking everybody's name out of vain and showing no respect at all. Why do we think it's going to work in 2025?
Because in 2025, the young kids, and this is me, like I said, from the beginning of this, I don't care one way or another.
Okay.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I don't think it's the best idea that's ever came out of the public school political system. It's not. But if we're teaching these young kids, not just on Sundays, not just on Wednesdays, that you got to come to church and go do your communion and say your prayers, go to the freaking confessional, kneel before God, acknowledge all of your sins, be truly repent, and then be forgiven. Not just on Sundays and Wednesdays, but if we're explaining to them the meanings behind all of these 10 Commandments, because if I remember reading,
but why do they need to know it? The part I don't understand is, why does a child need to know this stuff?
Okay, number one, I agree with you. What's number two?
Well, we talked about taking the Lord's name in vain, but we can continue on. Number 4, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Why does an elementary school child need to know that?
Because it's a day of rest.
What? In a society where people are working 2 jobs, that ain't gonna go very far when they get out in the working world.
Right. I tell my kids all the time. Dad, they ask me all the time, Dad, why do you make it so important that we do family stuff? I said, because I work my ass off to have the things we have, and it's that we have. So we are going to enjoy them. And we're going to enjoy them on Saturday and Sunday. Now, I believe that there's 13 months. I believe that the Sabbath is actually a Saturday, based on Scripture.
You trying hard. You trying hard.
I'm not trying. I'm not trying hard.
You really think our society where, I don't care if you're a child straight out of high school getting a burger flipping job, they're not gonna let you take days. There's no Saturday off. Most Americans now have to work their weekends. There is no holy day where you can be guaranteed to get off in the working world in America anymore. This stuff doesn't apply to the real world.
Well, I live in this same world, and I will tell you that 5 years ago, when I started living my life a little closer to those 10 Commandments, I now have Fuck God Fridays, Saturdays for the boys, and No Fun Sundays. We don't do anything unless it's not fun.
I cannot imagine how the folks on the right would talk about how entitled liberals are if they started talking about they wanted Saturday off. I don't think this would go very far. But continuing on, though,
Yes.
What'd you say?
I said yes.
Okay. K through 5 being taught the 7th commandment, you shall not commit adultery. Why does a kindergartner need to know about not committing adultery?
When is it appropriate to teach someone to be faithful to the person they're with? What age is the best age?
When they actually know what it means to be with a person?
Okay, so adultery is to be unfaithful to your spouse. We're not saying anything about sex. Now, when you look into what adultery is, it's texting, it's stepping outside of your relationship, it's talking to another person while in a relationship. It's not just about sex. It's going away from your spouse.
And once
honestly, do yourself that favor. When you get done with these, look up the definitions of those end words that we're so fixated on. And you will understand. And I only know that because I know that what I was taught when I was going through confirmation, what I was taught about adultery, it didn't have anything to do with sex.
Okay. Well, in our actual...
They didn't explain it that way. They explained it as you can be adulterous to any relationship you're in.
Yeah.
If you got a friend, if you've got a friend, don't be unfaithful to that friend. Always have that friend's best interest in mind.
I cheated on my friend. Who the hell talks like that, Julio?
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah, I heard what you said. It sounded weird.
No, I said, if you're not doing anything in the best interest of your kid, of your friend, That's a relationship. If you don't have your friend's best interest in, that's adulterous behavior.
I committed
Again,
adultery on my Julio. This is what it sounds like to me. Sounds like you were taught this by somebody who wanted to make it work. So they came up with all these twisted definitions of meanings of words we never use in this context. I've never heard of committing adultery on a friend. I have never heard an American talk like that.
Okay. So you're taking what I said and stretching it way far down the line.
You use
What I'm
friend
talking
and
about
adultery.
is-
You
I said
describe.
all relationships. I said all
No,
relationships.
no, it doesn't
Yes,
work
I
like
did.
that. I heard what you
Yes,
said. No one uses adultery to define all relationships. Adultery means generally cheating on your spouse or somebody you are in an intimate relationship with, not your friend. Nobody talks like
Do
that.
me a favor. Do me a favor, because we're gonna win or lose this argument. Minimize what we have on the screen, and type up the definition of adultery. Go to the second definition, because the first one's gonna talk about the wife.
What is this, the New Testament now? The Old Testament verses?
No, it's explaining what the words mean.
Okay.
I have cheated on my wife. You're absolutely right. I can own my shit. Can you, Mr. Alan Martinez?
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just do this just real quick before I move on. But I really believe, hold on a second, because like I told you before, oddly enough, we're talking about adultery, and that's generally, the churches where a lot of that's committed at. Voluntarily, okay, is there, you said there's two definitions? Let me see, because the first one, you're right, is voluntary sexual intercourse between a married person and a person who is not his or her spouse. Where's the second? I don't see a second definition.
Type in the biblical definition of adultery.
Oh, well, shit. Is that what I got to do? Oh, my God. All right, let me see. Biblical meaning. It shouldn't be this difficult, Julio. It really shouldn't be this difficult.
No, it definitely shouldn't. And we're going to fix that with Musk, and then we're fixing all of our social media and our search engines and making them be honest for once.
We're going to fix this in the 2028 election, probably. All right, let me see here. Biblical definition of adultery. In the Bible, adulterer is defined as a, wait a minute. Even here it says, now I Googled biblical definition of adultery. First thing that came up, this is an AI overview, so take it as you may, but it says, in the Bible, adultery is defined as a married person having sexual relations with someone other than their spouse. It is considered a sin against God and the affected spouse and a violation of the marital covenant. What are you talking about?
Okay, so you got it 100% right, and maybe they're right in the comments. I like to stretch my
You stretched the shit out of this one. It's like you put eggs in spaghetti to stretch it. All right, go ahead. I'll let you wrap it up.
But it does talk about the morality about being faithful to your spouse.
Yeah, spouse.
You can as a person, you can take and teach that same meanings and same stuff with your friends, with your mother,
Right.
with your relationships. Period.
And that
If you're being faithful, the covet part is probably what I'm thinking of.
No. And I go back to my original point. There is no need for a child K through 5 to be told not to have an adulterous relationship. That should not be in schools at that level. We're going to talk about they shouldn't be talking about sexuality and LGBT issues. They shouldn't be talking about adultery in kindergarten. There's no reason for that. Did I lose you? I guess Julio had a call. We'll move it on, but I'm going to say that if we're going to be talking about issues that children should not be learning because they're, it's indoctrination or they're too young, they shouldn't be learning about adultery in kindergarten through fifth grade. K through 5 is where they're teaching this stuff. It shouldn't be there. It's better than drag queens in our school, says Vincent. Depends on who you ask. It's not necessary. It shouldn't be there. Okay, maybe in your opinion, drag queens is awful and it's a 10. Well, this is an 8 or a 9. There's no reason for an elementary school child to be talking about adulterous relationships or what was the other one? Thou shalt have no other God before. I mean, this stuff, it shouldn't be in there. That's my humble opinion. I don't know where I moved that because I wanted to bring up the other 10, but I'll continue on with the program. You should have no other gods before me. To me, that right there has nothing to do with anything other than religion. I don't think a K through 5 student needs to know that in any way, shape, or form. Let me go back to the box. Then, Cal, we were talking earlier, and I do appreciate that graphic. Thank you very much. Let's see if we can make this happen again. It's better than drag queens in our schools. Are there any schools where drag queens have been in? Why did that come up? Are there schools that let drag queens in there? Then, Cal, good evening.
Hey, hey,
Hey, welcome back. So you heard Julio.
I did.
He was trying. I gotta give him credit. He was trying hard. So
Yeah.
what about the notion
That
though?
was,
What about the notion though, as he said that teaching the Ten Commandments teaches morality to children?
well, part of the problem with this whole argument is when, first of all, when he said he doesn't really care for organized religion and he got out of it and stuff. So the fact that he was arguing for every single thing you said kind of just took away, like, where's the legitimacy if you saying you got away from it because you knew you didn't believe in the teachings, then turn around and tell somebody, yeah, I guess it's okay if they in there teaching a kindergarten teacher, a kindergarten student about.
Well, his point was he believes in the material. He doesn't believe. He doesn't necessarily favor the teachers. Keep in mind, the teaching, the what we're looking at here, like the Ten Commandments, the Bible. That's the material. If you go to church, your pastor is the teacher. He's admitting that teachers are often corrupt and abusive and controlling. So he doesn't favor
Exactly.
that.
Exactly. So extrapolate that and give it to probably millions of teachers around this country who don't particularly believe in the gospel. And
Yeah.
now you telling them to teach that now to our children.
Yeah, that could be a problem. I don't
You
know.
don't
Yeah,
believe
that's a
if
really
you don't
good.
believe the pastors, if you don't believe the pastors are telling it, what do you think it's going to be like
Yeah.
for some teacher that was raised, in some small city somewhere, or better yet, in the big city, who does not care for, they don't care for religion at all,
Right.
and being told that they got to teach this to these kids.
That's a good point. My guess is what's going to end up happening, because you're right. Religion they can interpret the passages and they can interpret the Bible in so many different ways that they're probably going to end up revising the law to then require that passages and different stories be taught in a certain way to kind of tie the teacher's hands behind their back and prevent them from interpreting it in other wild ways. They're probably going to start requiring this passage means this. And when you're teaching class, you have to teach it in this manner. They're probably not going to let them continue to interpret it any way they want.
I know, but do you understand the apparatus that has to be put in place to guide all teachers in trying to teach this the proper way? They already complain that that our kids are underachieving, they're not getting the right information. Now you're going to squeeze this part into their curriculum that we already saying is insufficient, and all they really want the school to do is to teach the kids how to do, what do they say? I want them to know math, reading, and
Reading,
science.
writing, and arithmetic. Yeah.
Right. Now you want to stick religion in there when they've already cut out some of the best parts of our education, when they used to teach civics, when they used to teach, home economics, how to write a check. All of that stuff has been stripped from schools, along with a lot of like gym and what do they call those types of classes, like health education and all
Yeah.
of that stuff.
Well, but you do realize there's virtually no outcry on the right from this at all. So apparently, in an area like Texas, this is going to fly because the state is mostly leaning right, and the right seems to be totally okay with this.
And that's why I was speaking to a friend of mine about this very subject. And when they say send this stuff to the states and let the states decide, they got to understand that a lot of those states down there where those rural areas are, where there's a lot of poverty and everything, those students are going to get left behind by some of the bigger states with more funding
Yeah.
and more resources. They're going to get left behind, and they might be able to recite you some Bible verses, But you can't survive in this economy out here in this world because because you know the Ten Commandments by heart. That's
Yeah.
not going to help you.
Yeah, and that's what I was telling. That's what I was trying to tell Julio and one of my guests earlier is that you don't need to know the Bible to be a successful, to be a productive American, a decent taxpayer. I mean, the overwhelming majority of, forms of employment you may get once you get out of high school and out of college don't require any knowledge of the Bible at all. I mean, you ask the average American, did you need to know the Bible to get this job? And I'm assuming probably over 90% of Americans will say, no, I didn't need to know the Bible or anything in it to get my job. So I don't know why this is being required in schools like that.
Because it's indoctrination. It's the reason why they said K through 5, because like you said earlier, those are the most informative years of of somebody. They're learning. The first things they learn are the most dominant things as they become young adults.
Yeah.
And just because you tell somebody don't commit adultery, don't thou shalt not do this or thou shalt not do that, that doesn't work.
No.
And the same people that's advocating this in schools are the same ones that saying all of these parents should be able to go to the schools and tell the schools what to do. But none of the parents are taking responsibility for what they're teaching their kids at home, which is where the Bible should be taught at, along with the church.
I do agree that if you want your child to have a religious upbringing, it is something that should be taught at home, not in schools. But Bruce A in the comments ask a question that I'm hearing quite a bit. He says, but does it really hurt to know the Bible?
It's not about it hurting. It's about how is it going to benefit that young mind coming up. It's a lot of things. How does it hurt somebody to to have an extra period of gym in they schooling where they could get healthier? But no, we cut that part out because we said we need to teach them more STEM, right? We need to teach them more science, technology. We need to start teaching them these things. So now you crowd another part of the curriculum into it that has nothing to do. It's not going to make them better people. It's not going to say that, because we taught them the Ten Commandments that they're not going to go out there and kill, that they're not going to commit adultery. No, those things come from life lessons by seeing people actually do those things and being curious.
Now, in the comments, this is an interesting point. I'm assuming this from a standpoint of atheism. Less misinformation says it does hurt to believe in things you can't see. So, in other words, possibly believing in fiction or fairy tales. How do you respond to that?
I wholeheartedly believe it. You can't have a student come out of a class teaching science and that we need to do research and we need to have provable facts, and then have them go in the room where they say, look, we can't prove none of this shit. But you just gotta believe it. It's a contradiction in terms.
Yeah, and that is one of the issues with religion, is that the overwhelming majority of it has no proof at all. You just got to have faith, as George Michael would say. But I'm gonna move it on from you, Dick. I sound like I caught you in the middle of dinner. So
I'm done with dinner. But I just want that one thing I wanted to talk to you about Elon Musk.
Yeah, what did you have on that, real quick? What did you have on that?
I seen a video of him having a conversation with a bunch of very, very rich people, Saudis, all of the top dogs.
He's Elon Musk. What do you expect? He talked to a bunch of poor people?
No, I'm just saying, I was just laying out how the conversation was structured, and he was saying that everybody eventually will have to be on a universal income because AI and the mechanisms of the country is going to take over, and people are not going to have any. They're not going to have any jobs left. So they're going to have to come up with a solution that says we're just going to have to give people money, and then we're going to have to basically create a motivation for people to really, because people need motivation.
Elon Musk said that?
Yes, I was saying.
Wow.
I know you got 1,000,001 videos you look at and all that stuff. He is telling people that, listen, this AI technology is just a matter of time. It's going to take over all industries. The food is going to be mechanized. Everything is going to be mechanized and computerized and AI. And then basically people are not going to have any worth on this planet. So in order,
Wow.
they're going to have to, he's saying basically everything is going to be free. All the food's going to be free, transportation, everything's going to be free. So they got to just give people a monthly stipend. And he ain't talking about in the country. He talking about in the world.
Well, he better hurry up with that. He better hurry up with that colonization of Mars then, huh?
Hey, he working on it. He is
Man.
working on it.
All right, I have to check that out. I have to check that
I'll
out.
send you the video and see if you get time. You just scroll it and you see my name or whatever. Just check it out.
Will do. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
All right, moving on. That is interesting. And I think that some of that makes sense because at the end of the day, I mean, shit, technology is moving very fast. A lot of industries are already there. I mean, you got farming equipment that can pick the crops. What would be stopping farming equipment from laying the seeds, picking and harvesting the crops and all of that, shucking the corn and doing all of the work of a farm. So I could see that happening one day. So, wow. A monthly stipend. That's got to piss off a lot of folks on the right. That's what Andrew Yang ran on that back in 2016, talking about giving some type of monthly stipend because AI was going to do that. I kind of want to hear that. I was looking to see if I could find that. I think this may be something like
There will
that.
come a point where no job is needed.
Yeah, this is
Have a
it.
job
Hang on a
if you want
second.
to have a job.
I'm trying to.
Sort of personal satisfaction, but there will come a point where no job is needed. You can have a job if you want to have a job for sort of personal satisfaction, but the AI will be able to do everything. So I don't know if that makes people comfortable or uncomfortable. That's why I say if you wish for a magic genie, that gives you any wishes you want, and there's a limit. You don't have this three wish limit nonsense. You just have many wishes as you want. It's both good and bad. One of the challenges in the future will be how do we find meaning in life?
And you guys are hating on George Soros, but loving the guy that's up there talking like that. God, all of the hatred to George Soros, and here's the dude that you're favoring, promising he gonna take all your damn jobs away. Let me go back to the box. Wow. Imagine if George Soros or Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg had said that. I don't think the outcome would be the same. Continue on with the program. We'll go to, I don't know what I'm looking at there, Vincent. Wow, that's crazy. And with somebody of his nature, you got to assume that there has to be some validity to that. By the way, folks, tap the screen. I haven't asked that. Tap the screen, get the likes up to about 20,000. The numbers are very low because of that. I haven't asked you folks to smash that like button on YouTube, horizontal or vertical either. Get the likes up on YouTube as well. Vincent, good evening.
What's happening?
Not much at all, man. So what do you think about literally almost forcing Christianity on young, impressionable children in public schools?
Well, I mean, I feel like they can do it the right way, and it's not so much based on like the religion part of going to church every week, going to church every Sunday, and more on the morals behind it of being a good person, being respectful to others.
Do you need religion? Do you need religion to do what you just said? Be a good person, be respectful. Do you need to incorporate the Bible and Christianity to do that?
I mean, there's nothing wrong with incorporating the Bible to an extent. You know what I mean? Like, not if they're gonna incorporate the Bible and certain things out of it, you can use the Bible as a guide to really teach kids how to be good people.
But what I'm asking you, is that necessary? Can you not just teach them how to be good people without pissing off Muslims and Hindus and Indian and all these other folks because you're using your religion? I mean, somebody might argue that, well, you could use the Quran to teach them how to be good people. Why does it have to be your religion? See what I'm saying? Why not just teach them morality independent of religion or any religious documents?
I mean, as long as they're not forcing, let's say, somebody that's in the classroom with another religion. as long as they're not forcing them to participate or partake in that religion, I don't see too much of a problem with it.
But if you but that's the problem. They are going to do that. Like for instance, if you're
Especially, well, if you think about it this way, we call ourselves a Christian country. We're people that believe in Christianity aren't going to a Muslim country pushing their religion on Muslims.
yeah, but let me just say this.
Pushing their religion into a Muslim school.
Are we really, when you think about even the Ten Commandments themselves, do you really see America as a Christian country, or are we a country that just likes to say we're Christian? I mean, from government to the citizens to the corporations, private enterprises, do you really see America as a Christian country? Do you really see us operating like what Christianity would dictate?
I think over the years we've strayed so far from it.
When did we used to be one? Hell, you go back far enough, it gets even more oppressive and controlling. So when have we ever been?
Back then, with what you're talking about, how if you go that far back, the values were still good.
As Florida braces for its second major hurricane.
Hang on a second. I hate it. Go ahead. Keep going. I hit the wrong button. Go ahead.
But the people back then, there was a lot of prejudice and there was a lot of racist back then because we were a different type of people. With how far we've come in away from the oppression and all that crap, because I think we're so far from that. We're so much more of an accepting people now that to teach kids the Ten Commandments now with our country's values now wouldn't be an issue.
You said we're more of an accepting country now. Tell that to the LGBT or the Haitian migrants or any. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if we're as accepting as you're making it sound.
Well, I don't see us not being. The LGBT and all that crap, nobody's treated the wrong way.
You just called it, just simply merely calling it crap shows you.
No, I mean all of the other stuff. Okay. I didn't mean crap in a vulgar term.
Yeah.
All of the other stuff. All of the other religion. I mean, even Christians are accepting other people's religions. They're not hating. Yes, there's still some hate, of course. There's hate all around the entire world. We're never going to eliminate all the hate.
That is true. I agree with that.
But if you look at it as a whole, it is so much better now than it ever has been.
Yes, and it's less religious now than it ever has been. The further you go back in American history, the more religious it gets and the more oppressive and controlling it gets as well. I mean, like literally, the further you go back, you can put them on a graph and they both go up at the same time. Keep in mind, virtually no first world free country on earth forces religion on its people. The countries that do that, you don't want nothing to do with them.
Yeah, I don't think we should, to be honest, I don't think we should be forcing any religions.
Yeah.
But teaching some of it isn't the worst part. I mean, every religion has something they believe in.
Yeah, well,
and for those people, it makes them feel better.
Yeah, some would argue that's all it does too, is it makes them feel better. Kind of like thoughts and prayers after a mass killing. But what I want to say though is because there's so many other religions in this country, how does it look when you're singling out one to teach to the kids, even though there may be kids in the class from other religions and their religion is not being taught?
Well, that's why I don't think it should be. I don't think it should be taught as religion in these classrooms. I think it should be maybe the more broader spectrum, the more broader areas of the religion that can be translated to everyone's religion. Because at the end of the day, it's really all the same. All these different religions are very, very similar.
Yeah.
It's just how the people interpret it.
Yeah, and that's the point I made to you earlier, is that I don't see I don't see why religion is necessary if the goal is to teach children morality and produce better citizens. You can do this without religion because religion brings in a bunch of negative aspects. I mean, whether we talk about the Catholic Church or the Mormons or just the history of religion in this country and around the world for that matter, it's literally loaded with negativity. Why not take the morality plays that you're looking for out of this stuff and just teach morality without attaching words like God and Jesus and all that stuff to it? That way you don't bring in all the negatives, because there's a lot of negativity orbiting around virtually every religion that Christianity has to offer.
I could agree with that.
Yeah.
I could agree with that. And then if you're going to say, if you're going to teach these certain things, and you're going to say God, maybe say, your God, because like somebody in that classroom may think Allah is their God versus Jesus.
Yeah, but that's why I'm saying teach morality. You don't need to know anything about Yoda. You don't need to know anything about any God to learn morality. Just take God out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, K through 5th grade, these kids should be learning how to be good people, and they should be learning math, science, English, and reading. That's what they should be learning.
So you don't favor this then?
No, I don't favor one or the other, really. I think we need to get politics, religion, and adult activities, as far as any sexual activity, I think we should take out of all of our schools.
All right, and I agree with you. I don't see, certainly K through 5. Now, I mean,
especially K through 5.
now you say taking sexuality out of schools. I would tell you right off the bat, you start talking about 7th graders and up. You probably need to teach them about everything from venereal diseases to condoms, and I mean, so you need to have it in once they get to the age where they're actually having sex. Not teaching it is probably a
I
detriment.
would say 8th grade, you start to teach the body anatomy and how things work, because obviously girls are starting to get that thing, and boys are starting to become attracted to girls. So to teach them, because I also feel like it's not the school's responsibility to teach kids certain things about their bodies. I think it's the parents. It's up to the parents to teach their kids about sexual activity and STDs, and unless they're going to sign up for a specific I don't think it should be part of the curriculum. I think there should be an elective.
You don't think they should teach children in high school about STDs?
I think yes. I think STDs, yes. But I
Okay.
think there should be an elective that gets deeper into it, that they can elect to go in and learn.
But you do believe some of it should be taught,
Yes,
mandatory.
I believe it should be covered in your regular health class, absolutely.
Okay.
But to go further into depth of specific things.
What do you? I don't
as
get
far
what you
as
mean. I mean, what do you? I mean, further into depth about STDs. What do you elaborate? What do you mean?
No, like STDs to me would be a base subject, but past STDs, like more details of sexual encounters and.
Well, that's how you get it. You got to teach them that. That's how you get it. Some of them are passed in different ways or another. You got to teach them how you can get it, right?
Yeah, you do.
You're gonna teach them. You're gonna teach them about syphilis. You're gonna wait. You're gonna teach them about syphilis and gonorrhea, but not how you can get it.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, it's a complicated subject.
It ain't complicated.
I feel like the parents should be more involved in that as well.
Some parents don't even know this stuff their damn self. If you leave it up to the parents to teach the students, some parents got 2-3 jobs. They don't have time to do this. That's why they're going to school. You're gonna. What are you saying?
It's a touch. I don't know. It's a touchy subject, man. It is.
All right. Okay. I don't know. I think that you got to teach them
I don't
this.
know. I feel like a teacher in a classroom shouldn't be teaching a kid about masturbation and things like that.
But it's human nature. I mean,
But I don't know if a stranger should be teaching your kids that sort of thing.
I can put your child on an island by themselves, and by a certain time in their life, they're gonna be masturbating. It don't matter who teach them; they're gonna do it anyway.
Yeah, they're gonna figure it out. But
Right.
that's what I mean. Like, shouldn't that be more of a parent to child?
Well, the
teaching?
teacher is not telling your kid to go online and go shop at Adam and Eve and how to buy certain toys. They're not going that deep into it, but they are going to teach that maybe this is what happens. This is what is biologically built into you. to explore your own body. I don't see how that's that bad. They're not gonna call you up on a.
Too, though, I mean, with social media nowadays, these kids are learning things way younger than they probably should be anyway.
I don't know. This is happening all around the world, and I don't see kids turning out that bad from it, though. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's a tough. You know it is too.
What?
Parents get very, very weird about their children and other people teaching them.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I don't
think-
disagree with that.
I think they'll fire off at the mouth about something with emotion versus knowledge.
Yeah. With all of these book bannings that have happened in some of the southern states, I'm almost afraid of what could happen if you leave it up to the parents to dictate what their kids are taught. I think some folks really want this education that they perceive that it literally takes out a whole large chunk of history and what really happens. Like I said, I'm asking you, you're going to teach about gonorrhea and syphilis, but not how it actually is transmitted. I don't see how that works.
Like I just said, that's part of the emotion versus
Yeah.
knowledge. You know what
I mean, like for instance, I'll give you.
Emotionally, I'm feeling like a teacher shouldn't be teaching my kid about sex.
Let me ask you this: like I remember when I was in health class, way back when in the late '80s, teacher pulled. They're talking about using protection in health class. They talking about condoms and IUDs and all this stuff. Teacher uses the banana and they show you how to put on a condom. Are you saying that should not be in schools because the teacher is imitating the penis?
That shouldn't be in 7th and 8th grade. Something like that should be 9th, 10th grade.
Okay, I learned it in ninth. So I don't know. Nowadays they have sex a little bit sooner than they did back then too, though. So the fact that you didn't teach it, you may have a no. Hey, you should have told me. You should have.
And so,
Go ahead. What you say?
that goes to show with the social media shit because they're all starting earlier for sure.
That happens. Blame it on Elvis. He the one that got out there twisting his hips. Blame it on Elvis. I gotta move it on though.
Elvis and Michael Jackson.
Yeah, it happened before that. We always evolve. Kids are not wanting to be controlled as much as they were in the 1800s. Times change, evolution. I gotta move it on though. Appreciate it.
Thanks, bro.
Anytime.
Thanks.
Anytime. Look it in the comments real quick. By the way, tap the screen. It ain't social media, says CJ. No, it's just kids getting horny. Shit. Listen, when I came up, and I've told this story before yesterday. A lot of folks are like, well, change the subject, but I'll tell you again. Tap the screen, get your boy up. We should have been around 30,000. Come on now. A lot of lazy thumbs in here. Get the likes up. You know what I always say. But when I was, 14, 15, they didn't have social media in the late 80s at all. At all. And shit, I had my own personal VHS collection of porn. You can go in Chicago and buy that shit bootleg. I had my own VCR. I bought from the pawn shop. Yeah, I was able to watch that shit. So yeah, I agree to some degree. It ain't just social media. People will find a way. We always hear this in regards to anything. Let's say talking about left and right on the different sides of the aisle politically. When the left talks about, let's say, banning guns, for instance. Well, if you ban them, they'll just find another way. In other words, bans don't work. But for some reason, when it comes to abortion or banning, LGBT issues in schools or something like that, that same mindset of, they're going to find another way. They don't have it. They tend to think the ban's going to work now. I mean, it is what it is. If you believe that they will always find another way, criminal will find another way to get a gun. But you're going to tell me that the kid won't find another way to learn about sex, won't find another way to know about LGBT lifestyle? Won't find another way to know that what you're teaching them in the Bible may not be favorable to them? They'll find another way. It works both ways. It doesn't just work when you disagree with something. Let me go back to the box, and I do appreciate some of you folks that are tapping the screen, getting the likes up. Thank you. Going back to the box, we'll continue on with another one of my subscribers there, Mr. Walter. They found a way back in the day they won't be getting pregnant for nothing. They found ways back in the day they won't be. Well, I'll tell you one thing. Now that they've outlawed pregnancy terminations or greatly limited it in a lot of states, those women are going to find another way. My guess is just like, back when cocaine was too expensive for minority communities, for instance, they invented crack. They invented cheaper ways, meth. They invented cheaper ways to get high. They will come up with probably some other synthetic way of a woman taking a pill or something that will induce a pregnancy termination. They will probably come up with a backdoor bootleg formula to induce an abortion. Just like anything, if you ban it, it goes to the black market. Walter, good evening.
Hey, good evening. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. We're talking about religion in schools, K through 5 in Texas. They're now going to be using the Bible in public schools. What say you?
I mean, I would say it's unconstitutional, but if it gets to the Supreme Court,
Yeah, this Supreme Court is
who
different.
knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
And it is, we all know it is unconstitutional, but times are, this is a new reality here. So, will it happen? Yeah, it'll happen in these red states. But my question is to these, MAGA people is, why do they want to turn us into Iran? Why do they want to turn us into a religious dictatorship, which is what they're advocating for, essentially?
Well, hang on a second. Hold on a second. Somebody's actually ringing my bell and it's coming through here. Okay. Well, first of all, this is what I say on the show all the time is that, because, at the end of the day, MAGA leans right. And there is a such thing as a far. We always hear about, everybody from AOC to Elizabeth Warren to Bernie Sanders, and you hear about the radical far left. Far right does exist. We don't talk about it much, but there is a such thing as the far right. And with Trump having control of all mechanisms of government, including the Supreme Court, there is a much greater chance now of seeing a far right America than a far left America. So when you say, well, why does America want to become Iran or some of these other far right nations, is because we now have a far right government. I mean, that's what we now have. So you're going to see, and I said, and I always say this, that the three tenets of a far right government, first of all, it's very religious. Far right governments are very religious. Number two, they marginalize women. Far right governments are not necessarily big fans of women's equality. And number three is minority populations are not treated as equal in far right governments. And I'm talking about everywhere from, as you mentioned, Iran, Iraq under Saddam Hussein. You name a far right country, those three things are generally there. Strong religion, marginalization of women and minorities. So if we get a far right government, that's likely what's going to happen. You already got folks talking about women shouldn't be in combat because well, women ain't losing no rights. Well, you got folks on the Trump administration, such as J.D. Vance, stating that women who have children should get more say-so at the voting booth than women that don't. Or you got, him, he just said the other day, or they're talking about just women not serving in combat, for instance. Now, a lot of folks on the right agree that a woman shouldn't be in combat. My response is, well, the same reason why you don't think she should be able to serve in combat would apply to her not being able to be a police officer, a state trooper, maybe a security guard, maybe a firefighter. You can use that argument across the board in a host of places because, well, she doesn't have the same upper body strength, or maybe she's too emotional. You could cut women out of a lot of professions with that argument. And Trump has one of his right-hand men now saying that women shouldn't be in combat.
And that exact logic will happen. They will start cutting women out of these positions and opportunities. You mark my words, I guarantee you it'll happen. When they said make America great again, they want to make America 1945, 50, whatever, when every group that wasn't a white male Christian did not have any equal opportunity.
Yeah.
And this is what they're going to do.
Well, this one here to me is a clear-cut example of the likelihood of it happening, because I get a lot of folks. I got a lot of MAGA saying that, yeah, women shouldn't be to serve in combat, and they're giving their reasons. And yeah, like I said, those same reasons apply to a host of other seaside professions. A lot of domestic professions, you can use those same arguments. So once you get them out of combat, If you're a police officer and you're in a gunfight, you're in combat. Even if you're
Ask,
in Detroit somewhere.
yeah, I was just going to say, ask any person who served with women whether or not they should be there, and they'll say, yeah, they should, because they uphold the same standards, they uphold the same metrics, they still have to pass through the same training, and it's bullshit, and it's misogynistic, and this country is sliding back, man. I mean, this is what's going to happen, and
Well,
it's fucking sad.
I don't know if it's sad because I gotta say, at the end of the day, Trump won the women's vote. More women, if you factor all groups in together, more women voted for Trump than they did for Kamala Harris. So I can't hate on you. You can't complain about what you voted for.
Let's see what they say in 2 years.
Well, one thing they cannot say in 2 years is, I didn't vote for this. You voted for it. You got it. You can complain about it, but it ain't like you didn't know this stuff was coming. The whole childless cat lady was everywhere. So it wasn't like you didn't hear about it.
Yeah, 100%. And this is where I'm at. I have so much sadness that you know, that these people who thought they were going to get lower gas prices are going to end up, you know, losing rights and losing, you know, everybody's got family who is a minority or a gay, whatever. And when that shit starts to affect people,
It'll be
and
too
there's
late.
nothing they can do about it,
It'll be too late. Yeah. Yeah.
I want them to you know, actually recognize what they fucking did. That's all I'm saying.
Well, like I said, at the end of the day, you can't argue about something you voted for. And women and Hispanics, a large portion of the Hispanic community, I think the only community Trump didn't do very well with was black people. Black people didn't really support him. Some a little bit more. Well, I don't even think the black male vote increased that much. The women's vote was only like 7%. But all the other communities supported Trump fairly handedly. So you can't complain about what you voted for.
Just, you know, on that note, I just meant to ask you, did you ever see the SNL where Chappelle hosted? It was like right before the first Trump election where he won.
Yeah, he said give Trump a chance.
Yeah, no, but they did a skit with Chris Rock talking about, you know, basically how white people were like completely oblivious to things. And him and Chris Rock were like, yeah, we know who white people are. Watch that skit. Chris Rock and Chappelle, it was great. But anyway, man, I appreciate it. I'm worried, man. I'm really worried.
Well, we will see starting in about 60 days, man. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, moving on with the program. Dennis Calhoun says people give their kids phones and talk about what they learn in schools. Yeah, I mean, certainly that Bible stuff, you're going to have some kids probably recording what they learn in schools, and you're going to see it on, you know, liberal media and stuff like that. It'll be on memes, and you know, because once the teachers start interpreting the passages of the Bible, you're gonna certainly have some folks that are not fans of it. Some teachers that might be atheists, some teachers that may not be Christian, they may be other religions. Their interpretation is going to be jacked. I don't know if they can stand the risk of losing their job or whatever, but that's why I said my guess is eventually they're going to amend this to demand or require that they teach these passages in a certain way. Just like many of you folks may have, you know, you do your multiplication, what do you used to call it, timetables, if you're old enough. You know, if you do a 3-digit multiplication number by another 3-digit multiplication number, the way we learned it in school back in the 80s and 70s, 80s, and 90s, they don't teach solving multiple digit multiplication the same way they used to. And I do believe a mandate of how it has to be taught now went down to the teachers. So the same thing would likely happen with religion. I mean, not only are you going to teach this, but this is how you're going to teach it. Because a lot of things we learned in schools, they teach it differently now. I remember my daughter came home doing multiplication and she asked me for some help, and I'm putting down a zero, and you know, you get on the second line of multiplication, you do your first off the first digit, you put a zero, and then you start the second. They're using boxes and they're multiplying by tens. I'm like, what the fuck is this? I didn't even know what I was looking at. We came to the same answer, but they teach it a totally different way now. Well, that's probably how religion is going to be, where they're going to teach them Common Core math. Is that what it is, Mountain Loving Mama? Common Core math? I'm too old to know. So, okay, fair enough. If that's what it's called, I have heard of the term. But yeah, my daughter came home doing all this math in boxes and shit. Like, what is, I mean, it took up the whole damn page. Like when we did math, we could do a 3-digit multiplication problem in the palm of our hand. Just in case the guy giving the test, we didn't want him to see it. But we could do it in our hand like Sarah Palin. You need the whole page to do this now with all these boxes and shit. Looking in the comments, the Bible is a contradiction in terms, says Dennis Calhoun. True. There's a lot of contradictions in the Bible, such as an eye for an eye versus thou shalt not kill. Which one is right? Either it's okay to kill or it's okay to, either killing is wrong or an eye for an eye is right. I mean, there is a lot of contradictions in the Bible. I have brought that up many times. Also, Dennis says, I saw that. People get kids' phones in school. I want to make sure I didn't miss out on the super chat. Broken core math. Well, if it comes out to the same answer, I guess it's not bad. But if you're an older person trying to help a younger person out with multiplication, it's weird to see what they're learning. Let me go back to the box. Why is everything you speak of religion is always bad? I don't know. Right now, I don't normally. Well, I guess you are right. Because I grew up very religious, and as I got older, a lot of the questions I had in regards to religion and things like that, when they say when they use the phrase "the math ain't mathin'," such as America's a Christian country, and then I'm hearing everybody talk about America first, and we need to stop sending money to poor people overseas. Or I saw what happened when Obama wanted to give Americans health care. I don't see the Christianity. That's why a lot of what I'm talking about comes across as bad. I just don't see it. I mean, I hear about, well, if you help out poor people, you're giving them free shit. I don't see the Christianity is what I'm saying. So a good question, by the way, but that is why you're getting that from me is I just don't see it. I see a bunch of people, including myself. I'm not putting myself to any hierarchy in this. I see us as mostly all being selfish and only giving a damn about ourselves. Some of the largest homeless populations in America live in some very wealthy fucking neighborhoods. Those folks are driving their cars right past all that shit. I mean, so I just don't see it is the point I'm making. Now we're talking about, well, I don't want to send money to the Ukraine. Well, we weren't doing it here. You always hear the argument, well, instead of taking care of all these people overseas, you could be doing it. We could be spending that money on Americans here struggling at home. The war in Ukraine only broke out like 2.5 years ago. It ain't like people are bragging about how much we were doing for the poor before that war took place. We weren't doing a damn thing for them then. So the math ain't mathin' is my best answer I could give. Let me go back to the box. I think we use Christianity when it'll help further other stuff. Let me go to one of my subscribers, Michael. Good evening. Or who did I click on here? America is a Christian company, but the American people are not all Christians. Christian country, rather. America is a Christian country. I see America as founded on the basis of Christianity with a population that never really practiced Christian values. Gen X, good evening.
What's going on, Mr. Kim? How you doing?
I'm in the trenches talking about religion. What am I? You've been listening in. What am I getting wrong? I'm sure you've heard something I'm getting wrong.
It's not that you're getting it wrong, my friend. It's that we have two completely different perspectives on this subject.
Fair enough. Give me your perspective. Give me your perspective.
Well, my perspective is, back years ago, they did the whole no religion in the schools and separation of church and state, which we went to. We went through that through the 40s and 50s, and a little back and forth. But by the 60s and 70s came along, it was gone. Well, now they wheeled in on the other side. There was a void left, so the other side brought in what they think morality is about. The whole gay thing.
Is that? Wait, hold on. You're just saying.
Now they're teaching about books. Hold on, let me finish. And now they've got books that they want to teach our children and shit they want to shove down their throats in our schools. It was bound to end back like this. This was a forced reaction to another reaction.
Okay, first of all, I gotta. You heard me want to chime in because you said the whole gay thing. Is that really being taught in most American schools? What? And by the
Yeah,
way,
it is.
what is the gay
Public
thing?
schools,
Describe this. What is it?
Absolutely. They're teaching about the different gender thing and gender fluidity. Look, I just talked to my kids about this about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and they're older. Okay, they're in their late teens, early 20s. And they said, yeah, Dad, they really were teaching us how to. This is in Denver, Colorado. This is in Florida. You know, and those are considered, well, Denver's not Denver.
What exactly are they teaching them though?
I didn't ask for specifics, but they're teaching them, and we know this because they're talking about it on the world news all the time, man. They're fighting about this shit.
Yeah, but we're getting angry and upset about this. I'm curious to know what is being taught. Are we teaching them that gay people exist, or are we teaching them about, sodomy? What exactly is being taught?
Both. Have you not seen the books where they're teaching about John and Jake? And I'm just using these names. I don't know what they were, but this is an actual book. John and Jake are boys. Boys don't always like girls. Sometimes boys like other boys. Well, this is what boys do to be physical with each other. And they talk about fellatio. This is a children's book in a school. And I'm like, my point is this. The right got pushed so far that now it's like, you know what, you motherfuckers, we tried it your way and it don't work. Now I'm all for it. If you're going to indoctrinate my kid, and you said this perfectly earlier to me in our little private chat, where you said, well, then you're okay with indoctrinating as far as it, meets my narrative. Absolutely. I won't argue about that, and you're 100% right.
Then what you're going to do is the same thing what you're complaining the left did. All you're going to do is push things back to the left. And you got to get to a point where nobody is favoring indoctrination. If you're saying, I don't want LGBT issues or any of that stuff to be shoved down my kid's throat, but if it's something I like, it's okay to shove that down the kid's throat, then all you're going to do is make America swing back far left again.
If I've got the choice between the two,
you don't have to. What about the middle? You can actually pursue the middle. You can be against. Hold on. You can be against forcing religion on kids in schools. You don't have to favor that.
Let's throw the middle out, because there is no middle with the progressive left. It is their way or it's no way. They don't want to. Remember years ago in the 80s, it was don't ask, don't tell in the military. Don't ask, don't tell. Leave everybody alone. And then it was gay right. Now they want to give them sex changes and pay for it in the military. It's progressed that far.
Well, let me ask this: if a man and a woman can work, if you can work in an office and you can have pictures of your wife up, or you can walk down the street and hold hands with your wife, or sit in the park and watch your kids play on the seesaw with your wife, do you believe a gay person should be able to do that with their husband?
Ask that again?
What I'm saying is, if a man and a woman can show mild forms of affection and connection in public, do you believe a gay person should be able to do the same? Let's say you work in an office. You want to have a picture of you and your husband getting married on your desk. You want to walk down the street holding your husband's hand.
Absolutely not.
Why not?
Absolutely, positively not. And look, I was going to explain that for you. When I sit down to watch television at night, okay, I get the commercials. I get this. I can't even sit down and watch a television show anymore without seeing two men kissing on an AIDS commercial, an HIV commercial, or an AIDS medication commercial. And it didn't used to be like that. Again, the progression of it went from one thing to just something completely fucking nuts. I can't tell you how disheartening it is to set up watching TV. I'm in the hospital right now, so I've been watching TV all night long.
Sorry to hear
Every
that, man.
commercial at night it's terrible, man. It's mind numbing.
But that's the time of they're putting that on television at night, because that's the time where, say the freaks come out at night. That's the time that audience may be watching television, and they need to know cures and things about HIV. They're going to an audience that actually need that information.
Well, they do it during the day too. I'm in marketing and advertising. That's kind of what I do on the side.
Okay.
But you are correct. There is a certain audience that does watch that more so at night. But I mean, it's 24/7.
All right.
They show that stuff 24/7. I mean, you asked a question earlier, Tim, and this was an interesting question about the soldiers, the female soldiers.
Yes.
Well, how did you word that?
Hey, by the way, hold on before we get to that. Gregory, I see your comment about my guy being in the hospital. Mean stuff, Gregory. Mean stuff. I will say this though, in regards to what you asked, Gen X, about women. Now, there's I forgot the individual that's on Trump's cabinet that he's appointed. He doesn't believe women should serve in combat, and I stated that a lot of MAGA agrees with him. A lot of Trump supporters agree that women don't have the temperament or strength to serve in combat or even emotional control. And what I stated is the same arguments as to why you don't believe a woman should serve in combat or be allowed to serve in combat could easily apply to saying she shouldn't be a cop, state trooper, firefighter, different security guard, and contract position. You can exclude her from a number of career opportunities based on that, because all of them folks, all of them places have the same stuff. So women are losing. Women could lose all this stuff.
I agree with that 100%.
Do you agree? Do you agree with what he said, though, that women shouldn't be able to serve in combat?
Yes.
So you would agree possibly that maybe they shouldn't be able to be a firefighter or a state trooper or a police officer too?
I'm going to make you believe it, okay? I don't have to believe it.
Sure.
I'm going to make you believe it. If you're on the 14th floor of a burning building and there's a 5'6", 120-pound firefighter trying to drag your big ass down a ladder, what do you think the odds are you getting out of that building?
Now, based on your metrics, you would make me a believer, but I'm gonna reflect them right back at you. I'm 6'6", 300 pounds. What good would a 5'6", 120-pound man be to me in that situation?
A 5'5", 5'6" man is easily 3 times as strong as a 5'2", 120-pound woman.
He ain't gonna.
Easily. It's simple genetics.
He ain't gonna get me out of that situation, Gen X. He ain't gonna get you or I out of that situation.
Let me put it to you this way. Who do you honestly think you would have a better chance with? Would you rather have that woman dragging you down his 13 stories or take your chances with the guy? My fat ass is going with the guy.
Well,
You know what I mean?
yeah, I will agree that on that premise, I would rather take my chances on hopes that the 5'6" guy is slightly stronger. But I'll tell you this. When we talk about women not being able to be in some of these positions, I think there is one area where women excel above men in these same type of jobs that doesn't involve strength, and that is the ability to de-escalate. Have you noticed that in most controversial police shootings, it's a man that does it? Even though women are smaller and weaker, and we would think they would be the first to be trigger happy, it's usually dudes. So even in some of these,
that's not fair.
what do you mean it's not fair?
That's not fair because how many more men are there than women in that same police force? If you've got 10,000 men and 5 women, yeah, the odds are that more men are going to shoot or have a lower resolution rate than 5 women. That's just
even if we go with your response of per capita, there's far more male officers. I can barely think of maybe 1 or 2 controversial shootings out of my entire adulthood that featured a woman. I mean, even per capita, they're not represented properly. I don't know how many women there are on the police forces throughout America, but it is almost always men, whether it's beatings, whether it's a wrongful shooting, whether it is just simply roughing somebody up, it is almost always dudes. So even though you're right, there are less females in that career field than men, it's still got to be like 95% of the time you're hearing it is men doing this stuff. I don't know if the police force only has 5% women. It's men doing this stuff.
Yeah, but again, it's unfair to you and to me because we just don't have that data to really look at it and say, okay, yeah, we can surmise and we can, make numbers up all day and all night.
the reality is we don't have that kind of data.
So you
Common
believe?
sense would tell me.
I mean, well,
Go ahead.
I know you're right. We don't have that kind of data, but I look at the end. I have this, me being in a city like Chicago. There's a lot of women on the police force in Chicago. There are a lot of female cops. You just don't hear it. You just don't hear about women beating the shit out of people. You don't hear about women being trigger happy. Like, you just don't hear it. Even though there's less women than men, I get your point there. It's just like there's less blacks in this country than whites. But if blacks are in any field, I don't care if it's you're talking about crime or you're talking about rocket science, you do hear about some of them. I mean, you just don't hear about women being trigger happy or beating the hell out of people. Like, you don't hear about it at all.
I don't believe that there's been a whole lot of studies or data collected on that. I don't know. I've never seen it, and maybe there is, and I'm just unaware of it. But
I'm not laughing at you. I see Debo in the comments said, "I wish a woman would beat me up. That's better than being lonely." but I'm saying though, I do believe that like we believe men are better when it comes to war and things like that. I would submit to you that if we had more female leaders, there probably would be less wars breaking out. I think females would be more likely not to start events based on ego and being angry than men are. I think men are, the heavy testosterone certainly that exists in a man that's military age, between the ages of 17 and about 45. Those folks tend to be, heavily ego based. Whereas the women might,
college student?
huh?
Did you go to college?
Too many times, yeah.
Okay, so you went to college. Have you had roommates, homeboys, or
Yeah,
guys that were?
I've done that. Yeah, I've done that.
Extended period of time, a year, 2 years, 3 years, while you got your degree, correct?
Yeah,
And you've been married for an extended period of time.
I've done that.
How many times during your married life, okay, has there not been a war in your fucking house that she started that you didn't start? The man didn't start. How much peace did you have living with your male roommates when there was no female in there? Women are by nature nuts. They like to fight.
Oh
Okay?
my God.
That's what they
I
like
can't
to do.
believe you just said that. What?
Here's my new saying, Tim, and I'm gonna put this on a shirt. I'm gonna say, quit your bitching and get in the kitchen.
Oh my God. What are you hanging around JD Vance for lunch today or something? I don't know if I agree with that. I really think that when you everything from bar fights on down, you look at aggression in society, it's far more likely to be by men than women. That's why I say it would make no sense to think it would not be the same on the police force and the military. In society, most of the violence comes from men. That's just the way it is. And I mean, there's plenty of women in society. There's plenty of a data sample there. When you go to school, I mean, most of the fights are dudes. It's not women. Now, a lot of them are over women, but most of the aggression comes from men.
But that's what men do. That's what boys do.
And that can lead to war. I mean, like I said, for me being on the south side of Chicago, gunshots, I've heard them in my sleep. Neighbors, I got people on my block, they got murdered and shit like that. Drive-bys, you don't ever hardly hear women doing drive-bys and stuff like it's dudes. You watch how many? Think of it this way. Think of it this way. There's tons of robberies and assaults and homicides being committed. You can see this shit all over social media. How often do you see women doing it versus men?
I'm going to blow your mind right now, okay? Go into the U.S. Department of the Bureau of Prisons, okay, and look up violent in the institutions in the male institutions and the female institution, and the number is almost tripled. It's 3-1 in the female institution.
3 times more violent women.
Everybody in your thing goes, that's bullshit. Yeah, Google it. Google it. It's very, very simple.
3 times more violent women than men.
Yep.
I don't buy that.
That's the Federal Bureau of Prisons. I didn't believe it either until I looked it up. I was like, I'll be damned. That's why these crazy bitches do that. Want to fight all the time.
You got a problem with women?
No, I love women. I absolutely adore them, man. But a reality is a reality.
But
You've been hung out to dry, so I know you can empathize.
I've been hung out to dry before,
You've been
yes.
hung out to dry too, my man.
Yes, I have had that
There ain't
happen.
nothing.
All right, I gotta move it on. I gotta move it on. But what was that phrase again? Quit your bitching. And what would you say?
Quit your bitching and get in the kitchen.
Oh my God. All right, Gen X. As always, get well, man. Get well. Hopefully you're out of there soon. Godspeed to you.
I will do, brother. Hopefully by Thanksgiving, man. You have a great rest of your night.
Damn, really? Wow. All right,
Yeah.
man. Sorry to hear that. All right, moving on with the program. Hopefully you get well. Quit your bitching and get in the kitchen. Jesus Christ. Private jails. He doesn't have a woman, says my eye. All right, I'm gonna leave that alone. That's you, man. MAGA woman. All right, let me go back to the box. Tap the screen, folks. I don't know. Maybe TikTok doesn't like this. I don't know. Maybe the material sucks. Maybe that's what it is. I'm running a live on a bad topic. I don't know what the hell it is, but folks ain't tapping. They playing games with the numbers. My YouTube audience seemed like they got my back a little bit. Who is this? Michael says, who is this guy? Is he MAGA? Yes, Gen X is MAGA. Gen X is a friend of the program. We go back. He's been a friend of the program for a while. So Gen X, shout out to you. Godspeed to you on the healing part. Tim got something for you. Okay, we'll go to that. I hope he enjoys his hand. Fifi, damn. She said, I hope you enjoy your hand, Gen X. Kind of reminds me of the song by Pink, Just You and Your Hand Tonight. Let me go back to the box. We'll continue. Wow, that was cruel. Stick, Darula, good evening. Gen X, you're lost. Trumpers been crying for 4 years. Well, they're not crying out, they're celebrating. Stick, good evening.
Hey, what's going on, man? Hey, I understand why he's so upset now. He's upset that his diabetes commercial got kicked, and now they playing the the HIV commercials. His commercial got kicked. I just realized who he sounds like.
Who?
You know, because I got diabetes, and if you need to get the shot, you don't remember the old guy with the diabetes?
No.
He didn't say diabetes.
Why do you say he got he may not be diabetic?
No, he sound like the guy. That's what I'm saying. Like that's why he's so upset that other commercial took his commercial.
I'm trying to think what commercial that is. Oh my God. The guy with the
the
big,
guy
somebody
sitting
said
in
the
the
guy
rocking
with,
chair.
apparently a lot of folks have seen it because I see the comments. Somebody said the guy with the big mustache. Your joke hit home. Everybody saw that shit. I haven't seen it yet though.
Yeah, I mean, he's upset about that, man. I could tell that he's not upset about what it's about. He's upset that they took his slot.
So you say the man want to sit around and watch diabetes commercials? Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I mean, you got to realize that's his generation. That's what they had going on. So, you know, he had to put the word out there about the diabetes. This is the medicine that you need.
You wrong for that. You are really fucking wrong for that. So we're talking about Bibles, teaching the Bible in schools. That's what we're actually talking about. I saw you tuned in. How do you view that though? That now they're gonna somewhat pseudo. I mean, it's voluntarily, but barely. This pseudo forcing children to read the Bible in schools.
Yeah, I don't agree with it. And the reason I don't agree with it, even though I think you said they had the option to opt out, right?
They have the option to opt out, but the way they're doing it is okay. The school can opt out of this type of curriculum, but the schools that do opt in get $60 per student. So there is an incentive and somewhat of a punishment if you don't do it.
Oh, so basically what you're saying is the parents and or the student doesn't have the right to opt out, only the school?
Yeah, if the school does not want to take, I don't know. I don't think the money go to the parent. I don't know how, but there is money for doing it.
What I'm saying, no, not the money. I'm talking about the whole situation with the 10 Commandments or whatever else they're trying to teach in the schools. They don't have some type of permission slip. Okay, so back in the day, I'm 45 years old. I'll be 46 in December. But back in the day, we did have sex educational classes. But what came along with those sex educational classes was basically a detailed permission slip letting my parents know what they were going to be going over in the sense of teaching us, showing us, et cetera, et cetera. So we had to get a permission slip from the parents to see these certain things, whether it's conception, because we've seen a woman have a baby, whether it's the birds and the bees, let's call it that.
Right.
They had a video on birds and the bees. You know, sometimes guys, you like a girl and you might not stress it the way you need to. Well, let me show you how these are called emotions/hormones and blah, 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 and on and on and on. So I believe, this is just me, I'm going to start it off like MAGA. I believe that if we did it sort of kind of the old school way, which was get a permission slip. If your parents say, I'm cool with it, then you cool with it. Because you will have Christian parents that's probably going to be cool with it. But if that person is Hindu and they're not
Right.
on that, they should be able to have the option to say, hey, no offense to you or Christianity, but that's not what we teach and that's not what our religion is. So I want my kid to opt out. Now, if he can go to another class while y'all doing that, that'll be fine. You see, these are reasonable thinking ways. These are, what do you want to
Yeah, I don't think it's going to go down. I'm okay with that. If you basically want to have optional teaching of the Bible in schools and the kids can opt out and all that,
Yeah.
that's fine. But I think when they say part of the curriculum, I think it's being done on a more of a basis where the kids don't get a choice in it. Because my guess is there would be a ton of kids that would opt out of this. There are even Christian kids that would probably say, look, I got my pastor at church every Sunday, and I don't want his teacher teaching my kids something that goes against what our pastor is teaching them. So you would even have Christian kids probably opting out of it. I don't think they're going to give kids individual ability to opt out of this.
Well, the whole thing of it is, even though the Ten Commandments across the board, no matter what denomination, it's the Old Testament. It's not even what we go by today. Just being honest. No matter how people want to flip it and say it, if you go to a church and you start talking about the Ten Commandments, the first thing that the pastor's going to do is let you know one thing and one thing only. That testament is over. We live in the New Testament. That's why it's called that.
So what do you say? The Ten Commandments is irrelevant or something?
It's not so much that it's irrelevant. Those were God's laws when before Jesus Christ. If you're a person that believed in Jesus Christ, then that doesn't even apply anymore. Because Jesus Christ is the New Testament and or the Messiah, the one that died for your sins. So that don't even apply.
Here's what I don't get. Is that most throughout life, usually, I don't care if you're working or you got a job or you got a computer or something, or when they give you a car or something, you buy a car. Usually, when there's an update, that means what preceded it is now irrelevant. You don't normally see where they update something and people are still going with the old one and the new one at the same time. That's what to me seems kind of confusing. It's like once you had Jesus and once you went by the New Testament, why would you drag the Old Testament thousands of years with you? Why would you not? You got the new one now. Why are you still dragging the old one with you?
Well, that's what I'm saying, Tim. That's neither here nor there anymore. It's the sense of you shouldn't unalive somebody.
Right.
You you shouldn't cheat on your spouse.
Right.
No matter what, as an adult, a married person who needs to know this, they already know that going in that that's a sacred vow. You're giving yourself to God, all sorts of stuff. But the whole point of it is, as an adult, you know this. But again, forcing it on a child in a sense of you didn't even ask the parent, I think that's a lot of government overstep and overreach and or taking away people's rights. And as we've seen with the states, even though they call it states' rights,
So what you basically telling me is the government, not the state itself, not those people, the government in that state
Is doing
tells
it.
everybody what to do
Yeah.
and how to live, no matter how they want to live or voted to live.
Yeah.
And we've seen it, whether it's Ohio with the abortions, they voted it out, but guess what? Nah, we
They
think
tried.
we're gonna
Yeah, they
keep
went
that.
around. Yeah, that states' rights is starting to become the liberal boogeyman at this point because you know, anytime somebody starts talking about states' rights, somebody about to lose some rights. That's usually what happens when the state starts saying we want the right to do what we want. That means there's going to be people in that state that are going to lose the ability to do something. That's generally what happens.
And then not only that, I think you mentioned it earlier in your other live before you came back on. In Florida, or maybe somebody else said it, but in Florida, we had to have 60%.
Yeah, I said that. I was the one that said that. You got 54% of voters in Florida voting for women to have access to a smortion. I hate saying that, but pro-choice ability. And they raised the margin up to 60%. So since you didn't cross that threshold of 60%, the 54%, which is the majority, don't get their way.
And we never will, because that's the way they made it like that for a simple fact. They were already a supermajority. How can we get more power? Well, we can come up with these I don't know, even Saconian laws, whatever you want to call it. And we're gonna make it though. So if they do want to overturn it, they gotta get 60%.
Yeah, next time it'll be 65 because y'all gonna get you guys are gonna organize and it'll be 65 next time.
And that's the problem right there.
Yeah.
So where MAGA is talking about they don't like government and they want to protect the kids and all of that. I mean, if you can just hear my voice right now and the way I'm simply saying it, because you got to say it simple. That's the only way they can understand it. You got to say it simple. Simply saying it, if you give states rights, you're taking the people, which is you too, MAGA, rights away. No matter how you want to slice it, no matter how you want to put it. That's what's going on. That's what's happening. So all of that, we are the people. Yeah, it's more whites in America than it is black. And apparently, there's more whites that want a white guy as president than a black woman.
Yeah.
Obvious.
Well, there's also more people that want a man as president than a woman as well, too. So it ain't just sexism. I don't know because Kamala Harris. I believe Kamala Harris was not necessarily the best candidate, but it ain't just racial issues. It's sexism. To me, I believe she lost more due to sexism than racism. I believe sexism hurt her a lot more than racism.
Well, I agree because, again, the agenda on the right is basically y'all get back in the kitchen. I mean, J.D. Vance was trying to tell you in advance.
Quit your, I just had somebody say quit your bitching and get back in the kitchen, so.
Yeah. And Gen X, you know, if you keep them women out the kitchen, your diabetes wouldn't be as bad. Now, stop, leave these women alone and stop having them cook for you because they don't care about you. They trying to get you, man. They putting salt in it. I mean, it's just high cholesterol. I mean, they using the most baby fat. I mean,
Oh my
anything they
God.
can get.
You making me you talk the way you talking, you making me want a soul food dinner, some greens and collard. That's what's in all of that stuff.
And listen, he can't deny it. That's why he's, you know. But anyway.
All right,
so
Stick.
Gen X. He always wants a sandwich. You get what you get.
You obviously been listening.
He gonna get what he gonna get what he get. He voted for Trump. He keep asking for sandwiches. And so now, MAGA, here's your sandwich.
Oh,
Happy, go at it.
All right, Stick.
Go at it.
Appreciate it. Thank you. You obviously
Yes,
been
sir.
listening.
Have a good one.
You obviously been listening to Gen X for a while. They even brought up the sandwiches, extra butter. Hospitals serve turkey sandwiches. Yes, they do. They actually do. No shame to take care of your husband. No, there's not. We need to find more of those. I wanted to see what I brought up this clip. It's only a few seconds long. I'm curious to hear what this was said because everybody apparently knew about this but me.
Be diabetes, 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 diabetes. Thank you, Wilford. Diabetes, diabetes, diabetes.
I don't know why they. Okay, I see who the guy is now. I don't know why the commercial was done that way, where they got him repeating it over and over again. But apparently, he is the guy you guys were talking about. I put my family over all else, says Coffee Talk. That's the way you should. Haha, that guy always makes me laugh. I didn't remember that commercial. Didn't he do another commercial or something like that before? Wilford Brimley, yeah. Didn't he do it? I think he did another commercial, but I guess I learned something now. Anyway, let me go back to the box.
5, have diabetes and you're on Medicare, you may qualify for a free meter from Liberty Medical. If you have type 2 diabetes like I have, you're confronted with...
I have seen this commercial. All right, let me move it on. I have seen that commercial before. I just didn't remember it. All right, I think he did insurance. Yeah, I think he did some other stuff before other than that. He almost kind of reminds me of the Quaker Oats, the oatmeal guy. The religious crusades continues, says Will G. Well, they're getting stronger now. They are getting stronger now. Nothing more sexy than a hardworking woman and still plays her role. Will? Really? You're going to piss off some women when you start talking about roles. Says nothing more sexy than a hardworking woman and still plays her role. R-O-L-E. So the question obviously is, what is the role? What is the role of a woman? I don't know, Will G. I wasn't expecting you to say that. It's funny how they were fighting to get religious exemptions, not to get the jab, but they force you to read the Bible in a non-religious setting. That is a great pushback. That makes sense. That is a good point. You know, when it's something, this is the whole hypocrisy of this stuff. The left does it too. When things go their way, they're for it, but then they'll use all these excuses, twists and turns when it's something they don't like. But that roles comment, people always wonder what you mean by roles. Let me go back to the box. Fuzzard, one of my subscribers. Good evening, Fuzz. If it brings a coffee talk, we all lost you. We'll see. Fuzzard, good evening. Fuzzard, are you there? Okay, apparently my caller is somewhere else in the background. All right, real quick, and thank you for those, I don't know what I saw there. Thank you for tapping the screen, by the way. Can I get 50,000? Is that possible if you guys tap the screen, get the likes up? My man's still here consistently telling the public lies. Amazing, says Derek Harpo. You know, I always make it clear on the program, I don't block, ban, or censor. I'm okay with free speech. In fact, I favor free speech. You can be critical of anybody, including the host. So when you suggest that I'm here consistently telling the public lies and how amazing that is, I would just simply request that you give me some examples of the lies. In fact, if you come in the box, I'll bring you up, give you plenty of time to point out the lies and dishonesty you believe I'm stating, and we can talk about it. But to simply refer to me as telling the public lies and put no context, no description onto it, it's useless. I can't do anything with it. Give me some meat on the bread, something I can work with. You might be right, but give me something I can work with. That doesn't say shit what you just typed in there. Anyhow, Teamster CK, my lady knows her role just like I know mine. If one of us is slipping, we can talk about it. And that sounds like some OG type talk there. All right, I'll leave it at that. Mr. Biggs, what does it say in here? Kamala lost because she was a horrible candidate, says Bobby Thompson. I don't think she was a good candidate. I'm not going to disagree with that part, but I don't agree. I don't say she was a horrible candidate. I think that she was going up against a juggernaut. I think, and I say juggernaut, I mean, I think Trump had some advantages that were almost insurmountable for someone like Kamala Harris. And I'm not talking about racism or sexism either, although I do believe some of that hurt Kamala Harris. I don't think those were the issues. I think you got 107 days to run against a candidate that most people have known their entire life. Trump came down the escalator in 2015, so he's been a politician for almost a decade. You got to catch up to him in 107 days. Yeah, she was senator in California. Nobody really knew what she was doing in California outside of maybe the Californians. You don't know what the hell a California senator is doing if you live in Alabama. It's not something you pay attention to unless Fox News is blasting it for some far left policy. But for the most part, America did not know her. You got 107 days to catch up to somebody that's been around for that long. So that's hurdle number one. Hurdle number two is you're tied to the Biden administration. And Biden was a very unfavorable candidate exiting the 2024 administration. I mean, he's a very unfavorable candidate. So, I mean, his favorable numbers are like in the 40s. So you're going up against Trump, who himself is not very favorable to many either, but you're tied to all of the failures of the Biden administration, whether you are responsible for those failures or not. You're the VP, so they're going to pin them on you anyway. Keep in mind, they didn't pin any of Trump's successes from his campaign on Mike Pence at all. Mike Pence didn't get credit for the economy of Trump or anything, but they did successfully pin the failures of Biden to Kamala Harris. So that's number two, is that you got to run against Trump, who folks perceive had a successful economy, no wars, a successful administration, and you're tied to one that people perceive as a failure. That's another difficult hurdle for her to climb. Number three, I think, is one of the most challenging hurdles of all, is that she's on the wrong side of a double standard. She's on the wrong side of a lot of double standards. What I mean by that is Trump can say and do things that would end Kamala Harris's career. The Madison Square Garden rally, for instance. There's no way Kamala Harris could have hosted that Madison Square Garden rally and came out as unscathed as Trump did. I always bring up the Haitian migrant comment. Kamala Harris could not have said that and escaped as unscathed as Trump did. Fact is, Kamala Harris was trying to lead a party that would hold her accountable for a lot of shit that MAGA would laugh off if Trump did. So how do you compete when you're being held to this standard that he's never going to be held to? It doesn't matter what Trump says. Doesn't matter. You took it the wrong way. He was just joking. Kamala Harris is not going to get the benefit of the doubt like that. So you got to go against all of that. I think her chances were difficult at best. The role to be a helpmate and to nurture. That's the role of a woman. Is the role to be a helpmate. Ooh. And to nurture. I don't know. Ain't no independence in that. That sounds like a supporting cast member. I don't know if the women would. I don't have enough women on my program I would like to bring a woman up and ask about that. I'd love to I got to get more women on the program. It wasn't fair, but it was true. Biden turned around Trump's mess and didn't get credit for it. And I'll tell you this, facts only. One of the things I get Trump credit for is Trump goes out and speaks to the people. I think it was Charlemagne the God, the one that Biden said, vote for me or you ain't black. The guy that was interviewing him, he said that too. Charlemagne said that Trump lies better than Biden tells the truth. Fact is, Trump is transparent, even if it's not factual all the time, or maybe he's exaggerating. He talks to the public. Biden doesn't. Biden wasn't holding rallies throughout his presidency like Trump. If he was, he could have done some of the things you're talking about that was unfair, like suggesting that he turned around the economy after Trump, or a host of other things he took flack for, such as he didn't do nothing for blacks, he didn't do nothing for the country. That you got folks online talking about the CHIPS Act and the infrastructure bill. He should be doing that. Shouldn't be folks on TikTok and social media. He should be doing that. So Trump gets the benefit of the doubt because he talked to the people, and Biden wasn't doing that. Let me go back to the box. Texas born. Good evening. Welcome to. I saw Rainy. I do want to bring up a female. We'll do that. Texas. Good evening.
Hey, Bill, how you doing?
I'm doing good. So, Bibles being taught in schools. What say you?
I say that's a bad idea. We should not do stuff like that.
Why is it a bad idea?
because you have many other religions that's also in school as well, and you have to let the parents decide if they want their kids to be able to indulge in those practices.
What about the notion that it's a Christian country and that's the way it's supposed to be?
Yeah, however, we're not just a Christian country. We're a multicultural country
True.
with many different religions in it.
That is true.
We cannot say we're a Christian country when we got in government many people who practice different things.
Yeah.
You know, and even though I'm a Christian, you know, I'm a Christian, I'm certified. However, you know, I'm not going to push my way of life on other people who way of life is not mine.
Yeah.
You know, I can convey the message, but it takes you to receive it.
Yeah.
You know, so I cannot indulge in something like that, you know, with other people who do not practice.
Hey, you got some music up loud in the background that's kind of overtaking you a little bit.
I'm sorry about that. I cut it off here.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I cannot indulge in stuff like that. You know, I think people have a misconception that it's only right wing people who are Christian. There's also left wing people who are Christian as well, and these are their neighbors who go to church with them.
Well, I think the issue is just like you got left wing gun owners, but the right is more defiant, or not defiant, but more defensive of the right. The right is more defensive of Christianity, whereas you're right. There are a lot of left wingers, the black community, for instance. We're all brought up Christian, but the left. But the left is more likely to entertain other religions being equal, entertain atheism and things like that. We're okay with it. We're a big tent party. The right is more favorable to making the country Christianity, no exceptions, damn near.
I'm gonna say to a certain extent. If you know, you grew up in the black community, you know how we react as being Christians and stuff like that. We more almost like the right when Christianity come a part of it.
Yeah.
However, you know, I think a lot of people have a misconception about certain things, and that's one of the misconceptions. Yeah, we would like it like that, but we don't want to force it on nobody.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one of the main reasons I say. And we also pew owners too. You know, I grew up in a country where I see nothing but pews on the side of the wall over there with my Uncle Pete and them. We had rifles, we had everything. However, you know, I think people need to go ahead and try to come together with a common theme. We all have, most of us have the pews. Now, no one have a monopoly on it. You know, so they got to realize that we can't start speaking outside the box about different things dealing with that subject, because no one's going to win with that.
Well, but here's the issue though. If there is any laws that infringe on the Second Amendment, it generally comes from liberals. I won't say always, because Trump did it, but generally it comes from liberals.
And these liberals, we got to understand certain liberals don't speak for all liberals.
No.
You get what I'm saying? It's like it's a moron situation when someone try to speak for all liberals.
Well, here's how it goes. As opposed to speaking for all liberals, I will say this: the reason why it generally comes more from liberals than folks on the right is because it is coming from liberals that live and operate in areas where they're having a problem with an excessive amount of people being pew-pewed to death. So country liberals like yourself, you're not dealing with all of this, but it's coming from areas where people are living in areas where people are getting shot every damn day. Those are the folks that are desperate and reaching out and saying, we're living on top of each other. We're living in such close proximity. There's too many guns in this equation. The people who are pro Second Amendment generally don't live in areas like that.
Yeah, that's true. I grew up in the country. I also grew up in the city. You know, I grew up on the one class of the neighborhood that was an all-black neighborhood, but it was an upper-class all-black neighborhood. But we was liberals and we was Republicans as well. Well, we were conservative. I ain't gonna say Republicans because we had a lot of conservative views, and we had the church right there. So, we all went to church, we all believe in Jesus and everything like that. Praise be to God. However, when I'm looking at when people start to prejudge people because of the affiliation of politics, you start to misjudge people on that aspect. Now the leaders, I can't speak about the leaders. Now the leaders gonna say whatever they're gonna say out there to get votes and get people to follow them. But all liberals and all Republicans don't think alike. All conservatives don't think alike.
True.
However, I can sit at my dinner table with my fellow Republican brother that's right next to me, and we can all get along. But we let politics get in the way of our relationship. And I ain't the type of person to let that happen because I'm not that type of person because I'm always positive. However, don't prejudge me because you think I believe in what somebody else believes. I ain't gonna do that to the less conservative brother because what he believe, most definitely he ain't gonna believe in the same thing as other brother believe in.
I don't think politics alone is the issue. I think when it becomes more of an issue when you start trying to dictate how somebody should live their life. Just like with the pew-pews, people don't want to lose their ability to defend themselves. Just like women that are violated or assaulted don't want some government official telling them what their next course of action is after being raped or assaulted. So I think that's what happens is once it gets to the point,
up, brother.
huh?
I said that's jacked up. When we talking about stuff like that, me as a person of God, I'm still gonna hunt your butt down. You do something to my daughter.
Nothing wrong with that. I get that, but you don't want but you don't want some government official telling your daughter what they can and can't do after somebody done something to her.
That's true. That's true. And I just hate this misconception when people say certain things like that. And you think a liberal brother gonna sit there and let her daughter go through all that?
I would hope not.
I don't think nobody. That's a human nature.
Yeah.
Nobody ain't gonna want that to happen to their kids.
Well, I will say though, I get your point about being, the thirst for revenge and things like that. But I will say that liberals do tend to be softer on crime. Not when it's happening to one of their family members, but I mean, just in general, liberal. Like for instance, the right would be totally fine with you get caught stealing a bag of potato chips, chop your whole damn hand off. The right is tough on crime.
No, a kid stealing some potato chips. No, I don't.
You know what I mean, though. You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Yeah. But who gonna chop another man's baby hand off because he stole a bag of potato chips? You asking for trouble, then.
Right, you taking it. I don't mean for you to take it literal, but what I'm saying is you do understand the right is far more tougher on crime than the left is.
Well, I ain't gonna say that because you have some less folks to talk on crime too. You just think about the crime bills and all that mess like that they had back in the day.
That was then. I'm talking about now. I'm talking about now, not 30 years ago, though.
All right, brother, what's happening?
All right, you obviously. I'll move it on, man. I'll move it on. All right, I'll move it on because he sounds like he's encountered somebody else. Sounds like they need to find Jesus. It would solve the problem, I don't look, I'll tell you this. If there was solid evidence that Jesus would solve the problem, I don't think you'd have an issue about religion in this country. I think the problem is there's enough problems out there that Jesus doesn't solve, such as violence in schools, a mass assault, mass, unaliving or whatever. We've mentioned thoughts and prayers after each one of them, and yet another one continues to happen. So Jesus ain't gonna solve that at all. I don't even know why people keep even offering thoughts and prayers, other than thoughts and prayers is kind of like saying condolences. That's really all it is. It offers about as much value as, sorry for your loss, condolences. That's kind of all it does. Trump, and let me know in the comments if you think I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments if you think offering thoughts and prayers actually does anything beyond offering condolences. I'd be curious to know. Will G says Trump will say, hold my beer on the low poll numbers. In other words, he's going to go lower than Biden. We will all be all down bad because of the coming incompetence. Remember, Trump doesn't read intel briefs or hides classified docs in the bathroom. Damn. Well, I will say this, and I'll tap that one. I will say this though, Will. The stuff you're saying about Trump probably applied even more so his first term, and people thought he did pretty good. I mean, during his first term, he had low poll numbers. He was admittedly incompetent in some areas. I mean, he's admitting he didn't have he was ignorant on who to pick for his cabinet. I mean, he admitted it. MAGA admits he made a lot of mistakes on his first term, and they still believe he did a good job. So he should do better. You say, remember, Trump doesn't read intel briefs or hides classified docs in the bathroom. I don't think he's going to read intel briefs this time either, if he didn't last time. Women can be independent as well. That's why I said nothing is sexier. Okay, you cleared it up at the end. It's just when you start talking about women and having roles that a lot of women don't like that, because a lot of women don't like being put in a box. But I appreciate your clear up. Here is a surprise for you. I did not vote for Trump this time, says Paul Smith. Why is it a surprise for me? Fox control his hand. I don't get that one, Charles. Let me go back to the box, and thank you folks that are tapping the screen. We're getting close to 50. If we can get up to 60, 70,000, I'd be even happier. But Rainy Kane, or Rainy Backup, good to have I haven't had a female in the program in a minute, since yesterday. Rainy, good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Mr. Tim, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good, hanging around like Al Sharpton at a Klan meeting. So what I want to ask you is, they're talking about Bibles in school by force now in Texas. How do you view that?
I think it's a violation of the Constitution, and I hope whatever dignity the Supreme Court has will strike it down. I think it's horrible. And I think your other caller was right. There's too many religions in this country for there to be a Christian nation. Where in the Constitution is the word G-O-D? It doesn't exist. It's all hogwash. It's made up shit.
So in other words, it never was a Christian nation.
No, the founders left Europe in the first place to get away from the patriarchy. So, what are we talking about? I feel like, do people forget just the history of how this country came to be? It's because they didn't want to be ran by religion. I find it fascinating that there's this revisionist history on the right happening, as if this country was built on religion. It never was.
That's a good point. And I will say this, a little unknown tidbit. When we separated from England, we dropped a lot of their customs, which is why we're not a Commonwealth country. We don't drink tea like they do. Something else that folks may not be aware of, for the first few years after we gained our independence, we didn't celebrate Christmas anymore. We stopped. We wanted nothing to do with England for a short time. You should be able to look this up and find it. America did not honor Christmas. We got rid of everything about England. We did not like them. So we stopped celebrating Christmas in this country for the first few years we became a nation. They don't talk about it as much, but that is the case.
Yeah, I would agree. I had another point that I wanted to make. This was I came up here, if that's okay with you.
Sure. What you got?
So I haven't talked to you since before the election. So you were mentioning about Kamala Harris, and I would agree. I mean, for 106 days, what kind of campaign could she have run? Right? I don't think she did good at all in terms of, and I'm very critical because I am a Black woman, and I expect us to be on point. Answer the questions. And I voted for her every time she was on the ballot in California. I'm from Cali. And I know how this woman speaks. She was just disappointing to me in her interviewing process. I think her campaign was as great as it could be in terms of, you got 106 days. But I don't know.
I'll say this. Before we hammer, not to you specifically, but I mean to liberals in general, before we hammer Kamala, in my opinion, the biggest responsibility of the failure of the Democrat Party should lie on President Biden. He should have never tried to run a second time. If he had ran as a transitional president, which he led everybody to believe, went for one term, whether it was Kamala or whoever the Democrats would have voted in, they would have had a year, 2 years to run, and not 107 days. Biden staying in the game too long is probably the biggest flaw out of all of this.
I would not disagree. And you know, I was a Paw Paw supporter, so I would not disagree with you on that. I think we talked the last time I spoke to you was probably after the debates. That's how long I think it's been since I
It's
spoke
been a while.
to
It's
you.
been a while. Let me ask you this though, because let me ask you.
Yeah.
This is a great point in regards to what we're discussing. Angie on YouTube, when we talk about America's not a Christian country, he rightfully points out that when you're sworn in, the inauguration, you actually take the oath with your hand on the Bible. You do it in court a lot of times, so you raise your right. I mean, does he not make a good point? I mean, if we're going to say America's not a Christian country, why are the leaders taking their oath on the Bible?
I think, again, that is not, there's nothing in the Constitution that says so. You don't have to. Just so happens that's what we have done. I mean, there's nothing in the Constitution that says you have to put your hand on a Bible.
Yeah.
It could be on the Quran if that's your religion or whatever. Whatever it is, it does not have to be a Christian Bible, is my premise. Yeah. But he's got a fair point. That's a fair point.
I don't think they would vote you in if you ran a campaign on, if I win, I'm not going to take an oath on the Bible. I think that would be it for you.
I mean, again, there's only one person who could get away with that type of shit.
Yeah, he could do it. He could actually do it.
President Donald J. Trump.
He could, and that's what I said is that Kamala Harris would have a hard time beating somebody that's the beneficiary of all of these double standards where he can get away with anything and she can't.
Well, again, like I said, I live in that premise. This man, we're about to have a president that's truly a convicted felon as president. When he is sworn in, I think that's what I saw. The case is going to be held over until after he's president. So it's just like, what are we doing here? What has happened here?
Well, hold on a second. Now, Fancy Prancy, she's a friend of the program in the comments. She's stating that we have a short-term memory, suggesting that Obama swore in using the Quran. What?
He didn't.
What?
He used the Bible. That black man couldn't have gotten away with that.
Right.
That's all we would have heard about.
Hell yeah, we would have been known. Fox News would have never stopped playing that.
They would have tore Barry apart. I mean, like they already did. Said the man ain't even from America, so I mean that would have.
Yeah, the idea. Yeah, oh my God, I remember the tan suit and him not wearing a flag lapel pin and all. They would have won ape shit if he swore in on the Quran.
Look that up. Type that into Google. Look that up.
That ain't. I mean, look. I'm sure if I type it in,
we would have heard about that shit too.
yeah, I'm sure I'm sure the first thing probably gonna come up is going to be fact check. I'm going to put it in though just to see because that ain't really, in my opinion, worth looking up because you would have heard that. Now, Voice of America says Obama uses 2 Bibles at swearing in. When U.S. President Barack Obama took the oath of office on Monday, he placed his hand on 2 Bibles. The first was the Bible used by, and I got to click on the article. First was the Bible used by Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president of the United States, when he took the oath for the first term in 1861. The second Bible was a so-called traveling Bible used by slain civil rights leader Martin Luther King. So each time he won, first time he won in 2008, he used the Bible that Abraham Lincoln swore on, and the second time he used the Bible. He didn't swear in on the Quran. It didn't happen.
I'm like, that would have been something that.
Yeah, it didn't happen.
Barry wouldn't have been let down off of that one. Yeah. But anyway, like I said, I just wanted to come up and agree with you on the Kamala standpoint. It was an impossible win for her. And you're right, Biden should have stepped down much earlier. And I think I said, after the debate, it was, I think Democrats had a fighting chance to win the elections that they did win in the down ballot race. But if he had been top of the ticket, in my opinion, it would have been even more of a slaughter than it was.
Yeah, he definitely was losing worse than Kamala Harris was because a lot of Democrats, certainly after June 27th, even a lot of Democrats is like, this dude is too old to be doing this. I don't like Trump, but I'm not gonna vote for this old dude that's not functional anymore. That June, what he should have did is what Trump did in the primary, just refused to have debates altogether. And because that debate probably is going to go down in history as the worst presidential debate performance by a president in history. I mean, even worse than Nixon, because he responded to a question on using material that wasn't even asked of him.
We beat Medicare. Like, oh, come on, Papa. Come on, Papa.
Man, I mean,
Get
it's
together.
watching the quarterback break his leg on the first play. Like, damn.
I don't mean to laugh at my president because I love Joe, but come on, Joe, you should have hung it up right then.
Yeah.
And then he had the nerve to say, it'll take an act of God for me to, what did he say? Divine intervention for me to jump out the race. I guess you saw the Lord.
Yeah. Yeah, he said that to George Stephanopoulos. Well, Nancy Pelosi put on her angel hat and robe and said, well, let me get out there and do what needs to be done. But unfortunately,
and that old bitch is running again. I'm like, no, you ain't, Nancy Pelosi. It's time for you to go in retirement. Every Democrat that's over 70 should just retire. Stop.
I can't, you know something though, I can't, even though I get the issue that she's old and she's been there forever, but Nancy Pelosi has done so much for the Democratic Party that yes, she's old, but a lot of candidates owe their whole career to her. A lot of money has been raised due to her. At the end of the day, if she didn't step in, you might have had Biden lose to Trump, and you may have Republican everything even by a wider margin without her. So
I would agree with you on that. Again, I take no offense to what she did. If she had to do what she had to do.
Yeah.
She was trying to save the Democrats in the House. You know, it's unfortunate she didn't do a good enough job maintaining her making what's his name, Hakeem Jeffries, the speaker. So that's unfortunate that they didn't win the House.
she should have moved earlier. That's the thing, is the Democratic Party should have moved earlier to get rid of Biden. That will go down in history as probably the reason why they lost. Not that Kamala Harris was a bad candidate.
Yeah, malpractice. Can you imagine if that debate happened when they normally are supposed to happen and he had already been after the convention and it was just already showed up? Because normally first presidential debates aren't until September, October.
Right.
Right? That happened in June. So it's just like, this was all like, wow, what just happened here?
That's damn near that's almost as bad, though, to be honest with you. But yeah, if it had happened in the fall, then yeah, that's really fucked up. I mean, at that point, I don't know, Biden can pretend like he's sick or ill, maybe. It would have just been even worse.
Yeah, I agree. Well, anyway, I know you got callers. It was nice talking to you again, my friend. I'll talk to you soon.
Always a pleasure. Happy Trumping. All right, moving back on with the program. I did want to respond to a couple super chats. Edgy said, oh, not Edgy. Will says the founding fathers were Freemason. Yeah, I have heard that. You can put your hand on literally anything to take the oath. I don't know if America would elect a non-Christian, though. You're right. You don't have to swear in the Bible, but if you become president and you start doing things that are either anti-Christian or non-Christian, you're going to face a lot of backlash. Remember, they were trying to use that against Obama to suggest that he was a Muslim, he wasn't Christian. That's why they were calling him Hussein Obama, using his middle name. You know, Donald Trump has a middle name. You don't hear him using his own middle name, but he sure was calling Barack Obama Hussein, because they wanted to try to indicate he was another. Just like when I bring up Nikki Haley, when she tried to run and started bringing up her real name and shit like that. So I don't know if you could be successful in America as a president if you were not a Christian. The Christians would come out and try to destroy you, and there's a lot of money in Christianity. Ricardo Coulter, thank you for the support. Appreciate that. Ricardo Coulter, no relation to Ann Coulter, I take it. The one that told Vivek Ramaswamy during the primaries, I like your policies. I like the direction you are intending for America. I like your agenda, but I still wouldn't vote for you because you are an Indian. The right didn't say nothing about that at all. Vote for me, you ain't black my ass. Will G says, what kind of bullshit are you talking about? The founding fathers were all slave owners. I don't think all of them were, though, Will. There were some, I think there was an abolitionist or two in there. I don't think all of them were. But at the end of the day, they did little to nothing to stop it. But I don't think they all were slave owners. I don't believe all of them were. Can't wait until they start the stop and frisk again. Chanel 123. Why are you so eager to see that? Unless you're just trying to get a little bit of attention in the comment section. I can't wait until they start to stop and frisk. Why are you eager to see that? And you're probably going to get a cop or two killed in that, in my opinion. A lot of folks, I mean, because there's a lot of folks that, let's say even a criminal element. Maybe a guy is carrying a firearm he shouldn't as a felon or whatever, and cop believes that this guy is a criminal. So he stops and frisks him, and all of a sudden the guy pulls out the firearm and takes out the cop. That's a cop that if he wasn't stopping and frisking would not have been shot. I mean, it's going to likely result in the deaths of some cops, but hey, that's what they signed up for. She hasn't been touched in a while, it sounds. What the hell, Mr. Splackerville? Slaves own guns, blacks on... What? Where do you... This is where, before I go back to the box, this is where we talk about revisionist history and people teaching history wrong. Odie says slaves owned guns. Blacks on plantations owned slaves also. That's not true. If you own slaves, why the hell would you be on a plantation? That's just... You didn't have the right to run a business in America during the era of slavery. So how could you own, where'd the money come from? How did you own slaves cost money. You got to feed them and all that. You don't have any way of obtaining an income of any significance. Even most whites, I think they said only 1% of whites owned slaves back then. It was expensive to maintain a slave. So how the hell are blacks owning slaves in America during that? Where do you hear this stuff? This is how history gets taught improperly, from stuff like that. There were black slave owners sitting. I heard one or two in the Northeast, but blacks owning slaves, I mean, not only was it, when we talk about the word rare, you talk about throughout the, I don't know how many, 300-400 years, whatever you want to claim in regards to how long slavery took place in America. Throughout that period of time, hundreds of years in America, I bet you could damn near count on the fingers you have available how many black slave owners existed. That ain't something that was even remotely normal. But it sounds good to kind of divert the attention away from the fact that overwhelmingly majority of people that were doing it were white. Conveniently forgets about all the slaves in Africa. Why is Africa coming up? When we talk about 9/11 every September 11th, that terrorist attack that took down the World Trade Center and killed 3,000 plus people, do you hear people diverting and saying, well, you know, there was also a terrorist attack in Egypt, or there was one that took place in Egypt? No, you actually stick to the topic. I don't know why, for some reason, when there is a discussion of atrocities that went against, say, African Americans, people want to throw in all this other stuff. Every other case, we stick to the subject, but for some reason, when it comes to African Americans, we zoom out. Well, you know what was happening in Africa as well. All right. I mean, everything we celebrate and honor in this country happened somewhere else as well. Do you want to talk about that ships got bombed in Japan on Pearl Harbor Day? I mean, everything we can talk about happened somewhere else as well. So I don't know why they throw that in the mix anytime you talk about African American history. Did you know there were all kinds of slaves, not just African Americans, says Paul Smith? You know, I don't doubt that. But as I pointed out, they throw other stuff in the mix. Like, I've had people try to adamantly defend this notion that the Irish slaves were treated just as bad as blacks were. And it's just patently false. I mean, and this whole belief that the Irish were treated just as bad, but they decided to progress by not discussing any of their history at all. Because I often ask the question, if there was such a huge instance of Irish slavery, when were they free? Name any well-known Irish slaves. Did any escape? You don't hear the Irish talking about this at all. Well, you know, they just decided they don't want to. What culture? That's the word I'm looking for. What culture, what group of people intentionally decide not to talk about their own ancestry? You see them on St. Patrick's Day celebrating the hell out of being Irish. Why would they ignore the fact that they were first brought to this country as slaves? If that was the case, you would hear a lot more Irish talking about that. They just all collectively agree we ain't gonna talk about what happened to us. I don't buy that. I'm just gonna say I do not buy that. The reason people want to broaden the conversation is many people on the left, say that certain groups were marginalized more than others. If you don't think slavery affected blacks more than other groups, I don't know what else to tell you. You're trying to tell me there. I don't even if you did it by tenfold, whereas I said name a group that was at least 1/10 affected as much by slavery as blacks. I don't even think it's tenfold would even measure up. It's not even in the same universe. Like I said, there's no other group in this country that talks about what happened during that period, saying that their ancestors were enslaved. Nobody else is doing that. You hear the Jews talk about the Holocaust. You hear every group of people talk about what happened to them when they came to this country, but nobody's talking. If it was happening, they would be talking about it. It would be in the history books. You would know names of people that it happened to. You would know dates in relations to it. The reason that you don't know any of this stuff should speak volumes. Quick Google search says there were 300. Okay, quick Google search says there were 3,775 black slave owners, says Ed G. How many white slave owners were there? If Google can tell you how many blacks there were, how many whites were there? I'd just be curious to know. I know there's going to be more whites, but if you're telling me Google is reliable enough to tell you how many black slave owners there were, how many whites were there? If you can't get the number accurately on whites, that might mean that the number you're getting on blacks is not accurate. I'd like to know, though, because predominantly the slave owners in this country were white. So if you can tell me exactly down to the count how many blacks owned slaves, how many whites owned them? I'd like to know. Real quick before I go back to the box. Yeah, they brought their family members from the owners. That's a good point. Alicia Bling is talking about. If during the era of slavery being legal, a black person went up north and was able to accomplish a little bit of wealth, if they came back down to the South with their money to purchase one of their loved ones, like their wife or their husband that was still a slave, or purchase their child, technically they are a slave owner. That would count as a slave owner. You went to the same slave market as the white man. You had money. You bought your kid back. You are a slave owner. Like, and somebody, Big Dog, points that out in the movie Django. That actually happens in the movie Django. I mean, that's a fictional movie, but that does happen. But that is a good point. So when you say there was 3,775 black slave owners, how many of them actually were utilizing free labor might be a better question to ask. Otherwise, you might have a bunch of those folks that were black and owned slaves that were simply buying their relative freedom, but they went on the paperwork down on the books as a black person purchasing slaves. Will G says Irish were not even slaves; they were indentured for a term of 5 to 7 years and got land and money after. That is true. I don't want to go too deep into the slavery topic. This wasn't what we were talking about, but that is true. That the Irish were indentured servants. Fact is, if you were an African American born during that time, you could literally be 2 months old and you were already a slave. There were no 2-month-old Irish slaves. They were indentured servants. He's right. You didn't have little kids walking around already in slavery as an Irish person. Plus, the Irish had light at the end of the tunnel. I don't care how far it was out. You did have a date, if you lived to it, that you expected to be free. If you were born a slave in African American, you knew from the time of birth to the time of death, there was no out to that. You're in this until you die, period. Not to mention also, I often talk about rapes. I often bring that up. How do you think they created more slaves? They just simply brought in a big dude like me and paired me up with somebody else. Nobody had the right to consent. It just happened. Slave owner said, you're going to, be with this person and y'all going to mate until I get another slave out of you. I don't think the Irish are dealing with that. I don't think the Irish are dealing with any of the rapes. So it's just not even in the same universe, in my opinion. Breeding farms is what Tree the Bug calls it. Yeah, you're forced breeding. Nobody gets the right to say no in that. So that's all of that's rape. That's like, not to mention, I'm sure the master may have been sitting around watching that and holding his own shit and like, well, damn. You get done, bring her over here. That was happening. Guaranteed it was happening. Anyway, let me go back to the box. Never allow anyone to enslave you in any form. Yeah, because you know what's going to happen. Let me go to the box. Slave owners, grapes, too. Yeah, slave owners had a lot of fun in that. Just think, I'm not going to say just blacks, Hispanics, you name it. Anytime you give men power to the level where they're not accountable for anything, grape is going to be part of the mix. Any culture. I don't care if you're talking blacks, you're talking whites, you're talking Hispanics. Anytime you give men unfettered power to the point where they can do anything and there's no accountability for it, grape is going to happen. Guaranteed. It's going, no matter what culture, no matter what race, anything. Grape is going to be part of that. Because there's plenty of countries that have conquered other countries, and the soldiers were allowed to do whatever they wanted across the countryside. Widespread grapes. That's going to happen anytime men can do that. And during the era of slavery, whereas blacks had no right to testify or report or call the police or call for help or do anything, you could do whatever you wanted to them. So, yeah, grape, you can assure. And by the way, I'm sure that didn't happen just during slavery. That went right on through the Jim Crow era as well. Nobody's going to help this person. So if you drag her in a shed or whatever and do what you want, it's not like she can call the police and expect reasonable assistance. Nobody's going to work with her. So you can do whatever you want. You can scream as loud as you want. Ain't nobody coming to help. Will G, some of the black slave owners passed for looking white. True. Going to the box, back on topic, Trig, good evening. Welcome to the program. Like MAGA Charles Vaughn, I don't think MAGA wants to bring back that. Trig, good evening.
Hey, Tim, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. Good to have you back on, man. So we were talking about the notion that Texas is now essentially requiring students to read from the Bible in schools. How do you view that?
So, I'm a Chicago public school teacher, right?
No, you did tell me that.
I don't really. I'm trying to get my head around how you want me to put that into my curriculum.
Now you did hear of this already, right?
I have.
Okay.
I have, but here in Chicago we have so many other nationalities.
Right.
Every student that we get, they are not like Bible-toting Christians.
True.
So, I can't even imagine the madness that I would have to go through when I send home a particular assignment that's from the Bible and a parent don't believe in that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Now, I get that, people, everybody is saying, hey, the United States has went too far on too many things. Look, you just said about 2 minutes ago that, man, when we have something that's unfettered power,
yep,
anything can happen.
Yeah.
And right now, this is what we're looking at. Because I don't see nobody that's going to say, yo, you know what? You can't do this. You can't do that.
In what ways do you see where this might be harmful to children? Because a lot of folks are saying, well, it would teach children morality and might make things better.
Huh. Okay.
Like
So
for instance, a good example. Go ahead.
I'm gonna be real with you and say this, right? If people would actually honestly and be real honest with themselves and go and open up the Bible and read it from cover to cover, there are some things in there that would honestly be so horrific to them
Yeah.
that they wouldn't even understand what the you know, because your life is so precious, Tim. We can't just listen. We can't go in here and start spewing what actually is in the Bible and why it's in there, right? We can't. I mean,
Yeah, I have never read the book cover to cover, but since I've been having this conversation for the last couple of days, I've had people tell me, about the two sisters that got their dad drunk to extend the family bloodline and decided to have sex with their drunk dad, and both of them got pregnant. I'm like, damn, is that in the Bible? Somebody gave me the passage. That stuff is in the Bible, so you are
hold on.
correct.
Wait. I'll give you a good one, right? What about a king who kills, unalives the woman that he wants, her husband? He kills her. I mean, like this. And then they sit here and everybody finds out that he's the one who did it, and now he's got to be punished by God.
Well, that's the whole adultery part.
So what I'm saying is, Tim, we want to sit here and say, yo, the Bible is going to teach us the right way, the moral way, the upstanding way, and all of that, right? I'm going to need people to start understanding that, man, you can't pick and choose the parts of the Bible that you want.
Yep. That's where the problem is that people are picking and choosing what parts of Christianity they think are good and they're ignoring the bad. But the book is a book. You can't pick, and that's what folks expecting to happen as well. It teaches morality, but you can't read this other part.
Tim, people, they want to sit here and point fingers and they want to, use Leviticus. You don't sleep with this person, that person, this person, right? But then, in the same breath, you don't want to even start to consider that Jesus says, love one for another.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the problem, though, too, is that there's a lot of contradictory passages in the Bible where it says do something this way over here, and then you can go to another part of the Bible that seems to contradict what you were told in other parts. I always bring up thou shalt not kill versus an eye for an eye. I mean, like, well, is it okay to do it or not?
The Bible has always been known to be able to make it say whatever you want it to say.
Wow.
At any particular given time.
It's
always been known to do that.
And that's where the problems arise, is exactly from that. Is that you can, like you said, if anything I need this book to say, I'll cover passages that address what I wanted to say. And then if I disagree with that, there are other passages I can cover tomorrow to make that work as well.
Tim, check this out. The Bible says, drink wine, but don't get drunk.
That's possible.
Tim, you are not supposed to be drinking. How many people drinking wine and not trying to get drunk?
I don't drink it, so I can't speak on it. But people do drink and not get drunk, don't they?
I haven't seen it lately. How about that?
All right, I'll leave it at that. I can't speak. Like I said, I've never drank alcohol in my life, but I got to move it on. I don't know, but yeah, there's no denying. I totally agree with you that the Bible can be very contradictory for somebody to know how to manipulate the passages to an audience. You can pick and choose what you wanted to say when you need it. That is a well said statement. Trig, appreciate you coming in here, man.
All right, take care of yourself.
Always, always. Looking in the comments though, millions. What you mean? I don't get that one, Bruce. The wine in the Bible is not your Mad Dog 2020. All right, you're saying the wine in the Bible is not Mad Dog 2020, so it's not going to do the same thing to you. All right, I'll leave it at that. Let me look in the comment section. I do want to respond to, and Will G, you said some of the black slave owners passed for looking white. Because here's the thing I would ask about that. I don't want to get back on that topic too much, but in a society where there were really no legal protections at all for black people, if you were black and you went out and bought some slaves, what would stop a white person from riding up on your farm and taking them all from you? You know, you go get 5 or 6 heavily armed men, and what are you going to do to stop it? So yeah, I don't see how that could have been done successfully at all. Forced breeding had some benefits for the NFL and the NBA. It says that's a joke. That actually is, what is the guy's name? Jimmy the Greek. I don't know, for you folks who are old enough to remember the sports analyst, Jimmy the Greek. He said the same thing, and that is true. Now, that's not a joke, Ed G, and thank you for the super chat. I know some folks will say it sounds racist if a white guy says it, but forced breeding did have benefits for black athletes because they were bred to be physically, superior, because they're going to be out in the field all damn day. You're going to be working them, so you need to, just like you need to work. You don't go out and buy a Ford Focus. You go out and buy an F-150 if you need a car that's going to do some work. They were bred to do that. That's actually a fact. Folks don't really want it said because, like I mentioned earlier, it just makes the white man from that time look even fucking worse, because those same folks that were promoting and preaching Christianity are literally interfering with God's work to try to breed special people. I'm assuming that has nothing. I'm assuming that goes against Christianity 100%. Kind of like, almost like a similarities to what Adolf was doing in regards to trying to breed a master race. They were trying to do something similar by breeding a race of workhorses. And that's what I'm talking about. The further back you go, the more Christian we are. And then you start encountering shit like that. Those folks read from the same Bible we do today, most likely went to church even more frequent than we do now. And they thought that doing shit like that was okay. Looking in the comments here, that's what I'm talking about, calling yourself a Christian and then doing your own thing. Yeah, that's a good example of that, Paul Smith. That's a good example of that. Calling yourself a Christian and then you're involved in forced breeding of humans, trying to make them bigger and stronger than God intended and stuff like that. That ain't nothing but 19th or 18th century stem cell research and shit. You're kind of experimenting with humans. You're just doing what technology is available during that time. Nothing Christian about that at all. Yes, I remember Jimmy the Greek statement, and he lost his job stating the facts, says Talisha. Yeah, Jimmy the Greek said that, and that is because folks don't want to hear the horrible truth a lot of times. A lot of times people don't like to hear shit. This is why I always say, because I run a free speech program, I say it all the time. Everybody is in favor of free speech until you say some shit they don't want to hear. Everybody, left and right. Everybody wants free speech but then you say something they don't want to hear and they suddenly are not in favor of it anymore. Trump said he will deport Jesus if he doesn't return the legal way. You say Jesus is an immigrant and he go deport him too if he doesn't come back the legal way. Yikes. Let me go back to the box. That's crazy. Trump would deport Jesus. He didn't really say that, right? I'm assuming that's a joke. With Trump, you never know. Everything with Trump that's controversial is automatically assumed to be a joke. Shout out to Trump because that gives him the leeway to get away with saying any damn thing. I can always just say it was a joke. You know, he say some crazy shit, walk off stage, and one of his members of his administration, sir, that's not going to go down well. And then another guy said, you know, you can always just say that's a joke. Don't worry about it because it works so well for Trump. Kamala Harris would not get away with that. That's what I keep saying. They put Jesus back on the cross. Moving mountains. Ouch. Ouch. Technically, he was an anchor baby. And they're getting rid of that too. So I guess you're right to some degree. Moving on with the program. And by the way, tap the screen. Let's get up to about 70. That's going to be a push for what's going on right now. But if we can get up to about 70,000, let's make that happen. Truth is irony. If I can hit the accept button. There we go. Good evening, Truth. Harris was on one of her rallies. You were at, wait a minute, hold on a second, Truth. Harris was on one of her rallies. You are at the wrong rally. It's down the street. So yeah, let me say that real quick before we continue on. That whole claim that an abortion protester yelled out Jesus is Lord and Kamala Harris said you're at the wrong rally, so that means she hates Christianity and all that bullshit. The person, yeah, I've seen videos of that from the back of the audience and from up front where the microphone is at. If you look at the videos, you can't even hear what the person said if you're in the front. You can hear it from the videos in the back. The person yells out something while Kamala Harris is holding a rally. They clearly are not an ally of hers because they're clearly yelling out something to be disruptive. She is expected to not only hear what they say, but then to be friendly to what they're saying. What do you expect her to do? Break out into the Lord's Prayer? She's not talking about religion or any of that. They yelled this shit out in the middle of her rally. My guess is even if she had said amen or something friendly to them, they would have kept going because they're preaching against pro-choice legislation. So Trump could have did what she did. Nobody would have gave a damn. But the idea would, that means she hates Christianity because this person that yelled out Jesus is Lord didn't get her to spark off into a religious ceremony. That's crazy. Truth is irony. Good evening.
What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good. And I see in the comments, Silent Quake says they didn't even say Jesus is Lord. They said lies, lies. Whatever.
Right.
The person was not an ally to her, so she's not expected to address them in a friendly manner. Did you see what I'm talking about there, Truth, when that happened?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. And what it is you know, Van Jones put it perfectly. She's expected to be flawless while it's okay for him to be lawless. So at that rally, that guy was being disruptive. The first thing he called out was lies, lies. Then I'm not sure if she heard everything that he said or not, but you're absolutely right. He was trying to be disruptive. So what do you say to that?
Right.
She didn't say, hey, somebody go over there and punch him in the face and I'll pay your lawyer fee.
Right.
But she, you know, somebody who's disruptive like that, obviously this isn't where you need to be. Just like when I do my lives, if somebody comes in and they say, you know, they have all negative things to say, I say, move on. This is not the place for you. If you don't agree with what's being said, then you're free to go.
Yeah, Trump could have handled that any way he wanted. I mean, he could have cussed the person out and MAGA would have been like, you deserved it. You shouldn't be here doing that. But this is why I said Kamala Harris had the detriment of being on the wrong side of all these double standards, and that was clearly one of them.
Yeah, you know, what we've seen is America chose white mediocrity, or probably less than mediocrity, over black excellence.
Ooh. You think Trump is mediocrity, though? You think he's mediocrity? You really see that in Trump?
I think he's less than mediocrity. I think people give him more credit because of his financial, what they believe his finances are, than what he actually is. The gentleman thinks that windmills cause cancer.
Yeah, but wait a minute, hold on. We had 4 years of Trump in the White House, and many Americans didn't think it was mediocre. In fact, more Americans voted for him than Kamala. I don't know, mediocrity. I don't know if I would go that far with it.
So here's why he's less than mediocre. He was voted the worst president by by presidential scholars. Do you know why? Because in the first 2 years of his presidency, he did absolutely nothing to impact the economy. What he simply did was ride the wave of the Obama economy, where there was 70 straight months of unemployment going down and of 76 straight months of economic growth. So if that's already happening when you become president, all you got to do is not do anything for it to continue. Now, when he actually was faced with a crisis, with something that needed him to react in a presidential manner, he wet the bed, because his response to COVID was disgusting. And even Pew Research has said, they're bipartisan. I don't know if you're familiar with Pew.
Yes, I am.
But so they said that because of his negligence, because of his incompetence, that over 400,000 people lost their lives due to C-19. So yeah, that to me is below mediocrity, because had he just stayed out of the way and let Fauci and the people that were, capable and had the degrees, had he just let them handle COVID instead of appointing Mike Pence, who had already screwed up the AIDS epidemic in Indiana. He already proved he didn't know how to handle that. He had a guy with an extensive medical history in his cabinet with Ben Carson. Instead of putting him in charge of COVID, he puts him over housing. So yeah. So in my opinion, that's less than mediocre.
Well, the American people have a say-so, and they disagree with you. They think Trump was Trump.
Yeah, I understand that, but American people were voting on based on race. That wasn't based on quality.
You think the Hispanics were doing that too?
Absolutely, and I'll tell you why. Hispanic people, I don't know if you know this, Tim, but Hispanic people, Dominicans, Colombians, Cubans, Puerto Ricans, the dark-skinned in those groups are treated like trash. You will never see a Dominican, a Puerto Rican, or a Colombian president that has dark skin. You're not going to see it because they won't vote for them, because they're more color-struck than, and and I know in our community and in our families that light-skinned children are treated different than dark-skinned. I mean, it's not as bad now as it was back in the day. But Spanish people are still like that, bro. You can't. Wow. They treat those dark-skinned Spanish people like trash.
I didn't know that was prevalent in the Hispanic community, but I'm absolutely certain in the Black community.
Matter of fact, Tim, you can look it up. The people, Dominican Republic, it's like 94% of them have African heritage, and only 4% of them claim it.
Wow.
They don't want to be. They don't want to be. And bruh, it was more slaves dropped off in the Dominican Republic than it was in the United States. They were dropped off there first. Yeah.
On that little island?
Yeah. That was the first stop. It was more people dropped off in the Caribbean and Dominican and Haiti. And on the way.
Well, I got somebody in the comments that is saying, J.A. is saying, bro, this dude is racist. Nor true. I'm Puerto Rican. That's bullshit. So somebody on the island of Puerto Rico is disagreeing with you, though.
All right. Well, tell them to show me a Puerto Rican president or a Dominican president that was dark skinned. Tell them to show me one.
I can't speak on it because I don't know. And also in the comments, Thomas says, I'll ask again. And this is a good question. Because you mentioned we got rid of, we voted in white mediocrity as opposed to black excellence. Thomas says, I'll ask again, what the fuck was excellent about Kamala Harris? That's a good question. Why do you say Kamala Harris was black excellence?
You want me to tell you what's excellent about her?
Sure.
She's broken the glass ceiling everywhere she's been. She was a prosecutor who was promoted to district attorney, the first black woman as district attorney of the city of San Francisco. She broke that glass ceiling and then was voted as Attorney General of the state of California, the first black woman to do that. She broke that glass ceiling. Then she was the first black woman senator from California, broke that glass ceiling. Then from there, she became the first black African-American, first woman, period, to be the vice president of the United States. So she's been breaking glass ceilings. She's been accomplishing amazing things that all through her career that people of color and women especially have not done. So that's where her excellence is.
That's a good answer. I don't, I know some folks are going to bring up Willie Brown, but that is a good answer. Is that she has broken a lot of glass ceilings. I can't argue with that.
You can't bring up Willie Brown.
No.
When you're comparing her to a guy who has 5 kids with 3 baby mamas, and we already know that he cheated on all of them. And matter of fact, the last one he cheated on with an adult film star while with a 4-month-old at home.
Damn.
So you can't compare her character quality next to his, because he loses every time.
Wow. And that's what I was talking about before I move it on. I'll agree with you. And I was talking about the double standard is that a lot of folks are trashing Kamala Harris for this affair she had with Willie Brown. Nobody would give a damn if Trump had an affair with somebody back in the 80s. It would be meaningless. So that's what I'm talking about she was on the wrong end of double standards. Nobody even gives a damn who Trump was banging back in the 80s and 90s. Could care less about that. But it's coming up on Kamala Harris. So I get it.
And why is that? Why do you think that is?
That's the double standard.
Exactly.
That's the double
You know
standard.
what? Why else? Because they don't have anything else to falter for. That's why.
All right. Appreciate it, Truth. Thanks for coming through.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate you.
Always a pleasure. Looking in the comments, I said, yeah, but she slept with dudes to get places. Nathan, there's no look. I'm down with free speech. And I see Angelo said caller is speaking 100% facts. Some of my viewers like my caller, others would call him a racist. But in regards to whether Kamala Harris slept with people to get promotions, there's no evidence to that. In fact, there's only the Willie Brown guy. She continued getting promotions after Willie Brown was gone. Sleeping with Willie Brown certainly didn't make her vice president, didn't make her senator. Those ranks didn't come from him. Those ranks came because she was elected. The citizens of California made her a senator. The citizens of America made her a VP. So, yeah, like I said, if Trump did something like that, nobody would give a damn. They would not give a damn. I think most of her positions, even the attorney general and the district attorney jobs she had, I believe those are elected positions as well. Willie Brown didn't have the power to appoint her to all of those positions. He couldn't do that. So it's crazy. Is Fonnie Willis black excellence? I don't know the story of Fonnie Willis down there in Georgia, but you don't get to her level by being mediocre. I mean, the state is not going to give you the power to go after a former president if you're just a piss poor attorney. Or piss poor prosecutor. You don't get to her level without being excellent at what you're doing. So I don't know what Fonnie Willis's resume looked like or what her qualifications are, but I bet you they're substantial. I bet you she could leave her government position in Georgia and probably go to any law firm, and I'm talking about high-level law firms, and get a job there somewhere. I mean, her resume is probably impeccable. She's probably got a substantial amount of qualifications on her resume. I don't know what Fonnie Willis has to offer. I'm just speculating, but you don't get that gig at that level without doing some serious climbing. You just don't. Trump was lawless and Harris had to be flawless. That rhymes, says Byron. Your son gets some, you're happy for him. Your daughter gets some, you're mad at her. It's easy to see why the woman is the more affected by sex. That's a good point, Cindy. If you get a lot of sex as a man, you're a playboy, you're a pimp. If you do it as a woman, you're a whore, you're a hoe. That is true. That is a double standard, that women in the game get viewed negatively while men in the game get viewed as if they're accomplishing something. So Yeah, if Trump had Trump, his dad left him a ton of money, et cetera, so he didn't need to sleep with anybody to climb the ranks. But yeah, he's correct. If a man were to sleep with the CEO of a company or something like that and climb the ranks, it would not be treated the same as if a woman did it. It would not be treated. And that's why some folks say that, regardless of the fact that Trump beat Kamala Harris by quite a bit, he does better against women than men. Leave it at that. I don't like the notion that she didn't have enough time. She refused to tell us her policy, says Johnny 11. Well, if she had as much time as Trump did, Trump ran for a second term. He announced in like June of 2023. In fact, Trump announced his second run for presidency quicker than any other presidential candidate in history. And she did it in a considerably shorter period of time than any presidential candidate in history. If Kamala Harris had came on the scene and announced that she was running for president a year early, you would have knew far more of her policies. You can say she don't do interviews and things like that, but there's no way you're going to go a whole fucking year without doing interviews. You wouldn't, we talking about, well, all she said was, I grew up in a middle-class family. All of that stuff would have slowly got corrected. She would have had far more handlers. They would have seen her poll numbers tanking and made changes. She would have had a lot more time. I'm not saying she would have beat Trump, but a lot of the negatives facing Kamala Harris would have changed. I'm looking this way because I'm looking on News Nation. Apparently there's 5 more people that are saying they were victimized by P. Diddy. God damn, that guy's never getting out. But yeah, if she had had a year or two to run, claiming that you didn't know her policies and things like that would not have been likely to have happened. And by the way, we did know her policies. You did know her policies. You know where she stands on LGBT issues because you're running commercials about it. You know where she stands on should we help the Ukraine, because they're coming out and saying it to you. Most of the policies you're concerned about, you do know where she stands at. You just don't agree with them. You know she's not going to be for replacing and repealing Obamacare like Trump is. You know where she stands on tuition forgiveness, minimum wage increase, allowing folks to be in unions, religion in schools. You do know where she stands on most of this stuff. You just disagree with it. Which is why she lost, says Paul Smith. Now that may be the case, but the idea that we don't know what she stands for, that's not true. You do know where she stands. It's the opposite direction of where you might stand. Surgeries for T-Woman. I don't know how they beat her over the head with that so fucking bad. I've said this on so many lives. The fact that transgender people in this country are so damn rare that most Americans do not know of a single transgender person. And they beat her over the head with that. It was as if transgender people were on every street corner getting surgeries and shit. I don't know how that blew up to be such a huge issue. There are far more women affected by the rolling back of Roe v. Wade. That affects 1 out of 3 women live in states now that have those limitations and bans. The transgender issue, wow, I don't know. I don't know how it works so well because they are on the platforms being loud, says Paul Smith. Maybe, yeah, they were loud about it because Kamala Harris was asked about gender reassignment surgeries or whatever in prison, and she stated, I would go by the law. She wasn't talking about changing the law or passing new laws to allow this to happen. The laws that allow this to happen are already in existence and were taking place during the Trump administration as well. All she said is, if I'm president, I'm going to go by what the current law is on it. And they were able to use that to suggest that she was trying to pass all kinds of rules to allow transgender people in prison and and it worked. It worked very well. But I just still am so baffled how the transgender community has done so much damage to the left when there are so few people that are transgender. Like I said, most Americans don't know of a single one of them. Yet you would think they're committing acts of pedophilia and mobbing bathrooms and stuff everywhere. That's what the right makes it sound like. I don't want my kid, you see people on TV. I don't want my daughter going in the bathroom and not knowing, what's in here with her. in areas you live in a county where there may not even be one person like this. This is not even a remote concern, and it's coming out everywhere. I see in the comments you're saying your own answer, Bruce. Well, Bruce, if you're saying what I'm stating only applies to me, I'd ask you in the comments, how many transgender people do you know? How many of them do you know personally? I assume maybe because I'm wrong and you're right, you know you got all kinds of transgender people on your block. Maybe your neighbor walks around wearing a dress. You can see his dick hanging out. Let me know how many of them you know. Because I don't think most Americans even know most of these folks. I just think that most of it is under the umbrella of, well, one is too many type arguments. You know, well, one going in the bathroom or one breaking a record is too many. But most people, I don't, in most of it, you think, you go to some of these counties that are really, really against this stuff, rural Alabama, rural Mississippi, you think there's a bunch of transgender people walking around down there? You really think that's happening? And I'm a city guy and I don't know any of them. Now I see in the comments, Butterfly Ghost says you know two. I bet you're in the 1% with that one. It's not like the Christian church or something. Yeah, kind of the point I would make in terms of abuse. But I'd be curious, how many do you know? California first paid for trans surgery for inmate in 2015, Michelle Norsworthy. Well, I will give you a shout, Mountain Loving Mama. At least you do have a name, because a lot of times people talk about this stuff and they don't even have an example of it. Like Trump said, you send your kid to school one gender and then they come home another gender. And I remember when he said that first, I stated on a live, you could put a gun to his head and I bet you he couldn't come up with one example of that ever happening. Kid goes to school one gender and comes home another one. If his life depended on it, he couldn't name you one single incident of that ever happening. Same thing about Haitian migrants. He couldn't name you one incident of that ever happening. Yet he's on TV talking to 60-some million people telling them that stuff. And that's what I say about the double standard. The left would have tore Kamala apart if she was doing stuff like that. Would have tore her apart for that. But the right went out and actively tried to find Haitian migrants that were eating cats. They went out and tried to find it. Even presenting pictures of people eating animals in other countries to make a point. Real quick, but they are influenced at school and on social media. You're influenced about all kinds of shit. You can't remove influence. And that's not people going in bathrooms or breaking records. Now you've reduced it all the way down to influence. You could be influenced by any damn thing. Influenced by who? I'm talking influenced by the LGBT transgender community. I work in schools. You don't know what you're talking about, says T Storm. Okay. All right. So you work in schools. Fine. You work around thousands of people. I don't think I stand by my statement. I don't think the average American knows a single transgender person. What percentage of our population is transgender? You think they know everybody? I would tell you, I still stand by that statement. I don't believe the average American knows a single transgender person. When you look at the victory map for Trump, you know that map where all of it's red and, you know, California and New York and Illinois is blue or something like that. Minnesota maybe. Most of that red area, especially down south, they don't know of a single transgender person. I bet you they don't. You think farmers in rural communities and shit like, you think it's transgender people showing up at the only Dollar General in town as a transgender man that keeps coming in here? I bet you it ain't happening. I totally disagree with you. And I see in the comments, Kimberly says less than 1%. DG says 0.000001%. And I'm assuming I got all the zeros. I had to put on my glasses to make sure. But yeah, with that low percentage, the average American does not know a transgender person. If you live in the big cities where they don't shame their community, and there's also just a sheer amount of extra people, you know, Chicago, New York, compared to, you know, Biloxi, Mississippi, for instance. Yeah, you may know a few in Chicago. You're going to know, if you live in Chicago, like where I'm from, you're encountering people of all cultures. One of the things you miss when you leave Chicago most is the food, because everything you want is in this city. There's Vietnam people. You can have jerk chicken. You can have, you name it. They have it all in this city. But yeah, when you move to small towns, they don't have all of that culture, all of the diversity and all of that. And I'm going to tell you right off the bat, most small towns in America don't have any transgender people in them at all. Most Americans do not know a single member of the transgender community. I see them all the time at Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida. Yeah. Key West, you might see a bunch of them too. Like I said, big cities, areas like that, yeah. But most of America's not big cities. We know one, Caitlyn Jenner. RuPaul was, well, he was a cross-dresser. Though. RuPaul wasn't considered transgender, was he? He's just a gay guy. Well, RuPaul would have been considered trans, would he not? I mean, because you don't have to have the surgery, do you? No, he would have been gay. Okay, somebody says no. Okay, because he didn't pose as a woman. I'm a straight man. I don't know a lot about this shit, so forgive me if I say the wrong shit, because I don't know a lot about it. And I've been around 50-something years, and out of the majority of my life, only a short period of time has this stuff been on the public stage. Most of the time of my life, it's been hidden in the shadows. When I was a kid, was transgender even a term back in the 80s? Did they even call people that? I don't remember hearing about it at all. And like I said, I grew up in Chicago, and I didn't know nothing about that. So bear with me. Like I said, I'm not going to get it all right because it's new, even for somebody like me. He didn't identify as a woman. Okay, Crystal. He had a Maybelline contract and things like that. No, okay, all right. RuPaul did, and I like this music, by the way. I actually bought what is it? Shade. 2 of his tracks he had out. What was the other one? He had 2 songs out, 2 dance songs. Anyway, that's what the term was. I don't remember transgender. They were calling them cross-dressers and all kinds of other shit. TRANNIE, maybe. It was derogatory. All of that stuff was derogatory back then. Punks. That sounds like a term for being incarcerated. They call gay people punks. Anyhow, folks, I got Jesus. Punks. Yeah, Boy George. I used to love me some Boy George too. Yeah, Boy George did dress up as a female. That's another one. Boy George had Culture Club. Boy George got classic 80s. I'm a huge fan of the 80s. Yeah, Boy George is another one. Trump loves G Anthem, YMCA. Yeah, YMCA had a bunch of cross. Yeah, Trump loves the YMCA. I mean, that's a Trump rally song, YMCA. And you're right. The Village People would dress up as all kinds of crazy shit. Boy George was great. Yeah, Boy George, yeah, some from the 80s. Great music. In my opinion. I wanted to respond to another super chat. God is not pro-life. He is free will, says Franklin McCray. You get a lot of people disagree with that. God is not pro-life. He is free will. I'm not very Christian anymore, but even I question that. Based on what? God is not, I see in the comments, Alan Quinn says that is facts. God is not pro-life. He is free will. And I see Paul Smith, great comeback, says, have you heard about thou shalt not kill? And that's the problem, as I mentioned earlier in the live with the Bible, is contradictory. Because I bet you Franklin McCray, who says God is not pro-life, he is free will, could probably come up with some Bible verses that back up what he's saying. Remember my earlier guest who said the Bible is tricky like that, where you can always find a passage in it to make it say what you want it to say. I'm not going to pretend like I have a lot of intelligence on Bible passages. I'm quite ignorant on the subject. But I do believe what my caller said. If you can make the Bible say what you need it to say. There are passages in it for whatever you did, for why it's okay. There are passages in it you can come up with. And I bet you, without even having the intelligence to be sure, I bet you what Franklin McCray said, God is not pro-life. he is free will. I bet you there are passages in there that could defend free will. Just like there are passages in there that say thou shalt not kill. I bet you could make it work either way you wanted to if you looked at it right. I just got done getting rid of some kids, says Mason. Oh my God. That sounds like some there's a black comedian that talks like that makes abortion jokes. That's yikes. 0.001 of people are school shooters. Should we not? Oh wow, that's an interesting point. Ed G is talking about because I said very few people are transgender in this country. Like when somebody said 0.6 zeros and then 1, that's how many transgender. But he said, well, only 0.001% of people are school shooters. So should we not care about that too? You're putting a transgender American in the same category as a school shooter? Really? Wow. Wow. Really? I don't even know what to do with that. You're putting the fact that we have so few transgender folks, and you're defending it by saying, "Well, we don't have a whole lot of school shooters either." So should we? They're killing people. Huge difference. Huge difference. Wow. Jesus. You mean the 2,000 plus denominations that interpreted themselves? Something like that. The comparisons are unreal. Yeah, Chris, I don't get that one. You're actually putting. My God, I don't know what to say about that one. Paul, like, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, but your president does. Yeah. I can't speak on that, but shout out to Trump. He's shown he can get away with more than the average man. I'll just give him credit for that. Is some of it a witch hunt in terms of the courts? Yeah, some of it is simply because he's running for president and some people didn't want to see him back in there. But it's not all that way. He definitely got away with a lot of shit that you or I as a citizen could not. There's no, just for instance, let's say for instance you are getting railroaded in a court of law. You still can't act like a fool in court. He was found in contempt 10 times in a court of law. If you or I were getting railroaded by the system and was pissed off about it and started acting a fool in court, people would tell you right off the bat, yeah, you're being mistreated, but that's not the way to handle it. Somehow he got away with it. I don't know what to say. Somehow he got away with it. So I will agree that, everything that was done against him wasn't well, in the comments, Michael says, please, there was evidence. Yeah, there was evidence. There was evidence against Hunter Biden lying on a gun application too, but that don't mean they would have done that if his dad wasn't running for office. I do believe if Hunter Biden was not the son of Joe Biden at the time Joe Biden was running for president, they would have probably made him pay a fine, and his lawyer would have worked with the prosecutor, got a sweetheart deal, like he had. He had a sweetheart deal, would have got some probation, and it would have went away. But because his dad was running for president, they threw out the sweetheart deal and pursued criminal prosecution against the guy. That's a witch hunt. That wouldn't have happened if Joe Biden wasn't running for president. Well, the same applies to Trump. I believe the Alvin Bragg case in New York, not the Alvin Bragg case, the Letitia James case, where he's ordered to pay like $300 and something million. That wouldn't have happened if he wasn't running for president. That would not have happened. That Letitia James case, you would have had his lawyer, somebody like Michael Cohen, his fixer, still his lawyer, would have reached out to the prosecutors. They would have made some kind of behind the scenes deal. Trump would have wrote a check for a couple $1 million or whatever, and that shit would have went away. That's how that would have worked. That's why you had folks like Kevin O'Leary, like all these other people do this all the time. Yeah, because they're not running for president. Yeah, they do it all the time. They're not running for president, so it doesn't matter. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying Trump is innocent of it, but what I am saying is that people at his level, in regards to at least that case, would have gotten away with it. Now, the stuff with Fonnie Willis and Jack Smith, I don't think that stuff is a witch hunt. I think once Jack Smith tells you, or not Jack Smith, but the was it the Smithsonian or whatever? Once they tell you, sir, you have some documents that you are required to give back, and you refuse to do it, and then you start receiving subpoenas in the mail, and you're like, fuck them, I'm keeping these anyway, you are doing something wrong. And Trump did that. Trump, you had his own attorney testify that she told him, sir, if you do not adhere to this subpoena, you're committing a crime. His own lawyer told him that. He decided, fuck him, I'm gonna keep doing it anyway. We can talk about Hunter, we can talk about Mike Pence and Joe Biden having documents, but they didn't do that. They didn't throw up the middle finger to the courts. Trump did. So the Jack Smith and the Fonnie Willis stuff down in Georgia with the fake electors and all of that, I don't believe that stuff is a witch hunt. And there's nobody else to compare it to because nobody else has an instance of having fake electors and all this stuff working on their behalf. It's never happened before. So, but I don't believe that stuff is a witch hunt. I do believe the Alvin Bragg and the Alvin Bragg stuff and the Letitia James stuff up in New York, I do believe that stuff would not have happened if he wasn't running for president. But Jack Smith and Fonnie Willis, different story in my opinion. And I also believe that judge that was giving Jack Smith all kinds of resistance down in Miami is a biased judge. We talk about, you believe the judges in New York were working against Trump? Well, the one in Miami was working for him. Colin Ratley, Democrats' favorite line, science doesn't lie. But that doesn't apply when talking about transgender. I can't push back on that. I think that's a legitimate case to be made. Like I said, just like with free speech, everybody talks in favor of some shit until it goes against something that they stand for. I can't disagree with that because the science does suggest that you're either male or female. I mean, there is a scientific definition for what's a man and what's a woman. Chromosomes, organs you're born with. I mean, so the idea that you can transfer from one to the other, scientifically, that's not possible, in my opinion. And I'm an ally of the community. I consider myself an ally of the LGBT community, but I'm not going to deny a statement that makes sense. Scientifically, if you're saying trust the science, and I believe the science, but you also believe a man can transform from a man to a woman, then it is a contradictory term. I don't disagree with that. Just like the right, during the pandemic, when it came to wearing masks and social distancing, we're basically saying, my body, my choice. If I don't want to get vaccinated, my body, my choice. You can't force me to do something with my body that I don't want to do. The minute it came to rolling back Roe versus Wade, they went to the other side of the argument. Same thing, in my opinion. Real quick, looking at the comments. I don't think he said fake. I think he said it was never. Wait a minute. Butterfly Ghost, you said, I don't think he said fake. I think he is saying it never would have seen the light of day if he was not running. It would have seen the light of day. It would have been easier to solve. I still think it's possible that Letitia James and Alvin Bragg would have prosecuted Trump. But I think it would have been easier to solve, is what I'm saying. Whereas Letitia James would have showed, look, your properties were evaluated at this level, and here you are, and all it is. But it does appear as if the banks don't seem to have a problem with the loans you borrowed. Apparently, you satisfied their loan plus interest. It's against the law, but there's nobody complaining about what you did. We'll go ahead and give you a minor fine, and that'll be it. And I think that's what would have happened. That's what would have happened in regards to the Letitia James lawsuit. And the same thing with Alvin Bragg. I think there's something similar like that would have probably came and went. Now, the E. Jean Carroll stuff is different. The defamation case is different. She wrote a book suggesting that Trump sexually assaulted her. She wasn't trying to pursue the guy for sexual assault. She wasn't pursuing Trump for anything. She wasn't suing him. She wasn't asking for any money from Trump or anything. She was writing a tell-all book of how she stated Trump violated her, a documentary of sorts. Trump stepped in and stated her documentary belonged in the fiction section, suggesting that this documentary is all lies. Now you've kind of called her hand because now she has to prove what she's saying is true. And of course, he added in a few negative, insults and things like that about her. That's where the whole defamation lawsuit came in. She didn't sue him on the grounds that he violated her or any of that. She sued him on the grounds that he defamed her by saying her book was fiction. He didn't have to do that. That's what Chris Christie said. All Trump had to say is, I'm sorry to hear she thinks that way. I wish her the best. God bless her. She would have had no defamation suit at all. He was the one that decided, well, let me insult the hell out of this woman. Let me call her a fat pig and say I wouldn't fuck her and all this other crazy stuff. He did that, giving her an avenue now to produce pictures and shit and show them together and him to say, well, that looks like my ex-wife when it's really the woman that is claiming you violated her. He got involved in some stuff that he didn't need to. He didn't have to do all of that. That's what got him a judgment that he had to pay her $5 million for defaming her. Once he lost that defamation suit, what did he do? Well, in typical Trump fashion, well, I'm going to go and defame the bitch 100 times more this time. And of course, this time he lost a much bigger judgment, like $83 million or something like that. So he owes E. Jean Carroll like $88.5 million or something like that. I don't know if she'll ever get all of that with the Supreme Court and all that working on Trump's behalf, but it didn't have to happen. Look, I don't know what the hell she's talking about. I may have known her 30, 40 years from now. I'm sorry she feels that way. God bless her. And that's the end of that. All of the fat pig and all that, he didn't have to do all that shit. So he talked himself into all of that mess. That ain't a witch hunt. The E. Jean Carroll case is not a witch hunt. That's Trump acting a fool and paying the consequences for doing so. Real quick in the comments, I do want to respond to a super chat. And I know a lot of folks on the right believe E. Jean Carroll's case was a witch hunt too. It was totally preventable. He didn't have to do that. My Body, My Choice was only used to mimic the left during COVID. It's unlawful to force someone to put a foreign substance in their bloodstream. Well, that's an interesting point you want to make, Colin Radley. You're saying it's unlawful to force somebody to put a foreign substance in their bloodstream. What if a woman being refused the right to terminate a pregnancy says, well, shit, if you're going to force, then I'm not going to take any prenatals. I'm not going to eat or do anything. You think they might not force her to put a needle in her arm so they can force feed her and preserve that baby? I bet you that would likely happen. If a woman decided, since I'm going to go on a hunger strike, then I'm just not going to eat. I bet you to preserve the life of that baby, they would do exactly what you're talking about. Force a needle in her arm and start forcing stuff into her body. So it's the same thing in regards to that. So no kids in Sodom and Gomorrah. It shouldn't be taught. Shouldn't be taught in schools. Talking about Sodom and Gomorrah. It should not be taught. You stay the F out of our business, says Chanel. Well, women voted for this. There's a lot of particularly African Americans that are like literally looking forward to hearing particularly Hispanics bitch about the mass deportation. There's a lot of African Americans that are like, you getting what you deserve. Because the African American community did not support Trump. He didn't do any better with African Americans this time, really, than he did last time. Certain counties, yeah. But overall, the percentage of the African American vote that Trump got in 2024 is not much better at all than 2016 or 2020. So he didn't improve by any large margin at all with blacks. He did a great job with Hispanics. So there's a lot of African Americans that are like, I can't wait to see these motherfuckers get deported. There are people who want to laugh in their face. I get them on the show all the time. And to some degree with women, because Trump did win the women's vote. More women as a whole voted for Trump than they did Kamala Harris. Only 7% of black women, but if you put all women together and take their percentage by gender, more women voted for Trump than they did for Kamala Harris. White women, which is the largest voting block of women, I think he got like 50 some odd % of white women. 38% of Hispanic women, 7% of blacks, and then I don't know what the other category is, but that's not true. African American men number were significantly better. Now, I don't believe that. Let me see if I can. I like to. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I don't believe that is true. That he did much better with African American men this time. There are areas that he did do better. There are areas like there was a county in North Carolina that hadn't went red since the Reconstruction era that Trump won. There are areas he did, but I don't think overall. Let me see. African American vote for Trump. I'm going to simply Google that. Well, I need to do men because the women did. The women got 7%. I already know what that is. African American. I should be taking a call while I'm doing this shit, but African American women's vote, or not women's, men vote for Trump. Got too much shit going on in the brain at the same time. All right. I'd like to know what it was from previous elections as well, though, once I find this out. This article is not telling me any damn thing I need to know. No, I'm not. It's telling me more. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. So it said in 2024, it says Democrats and Republicans. 86% Democrat, 12% Republicans. That's in 2024. Now, let me make sure this is men and not just, it says Georgia. Okay, yeah, this is telling me state by state, so I can't really go by this. I'd be curious to see the benefit. Trump, who won 20% of the black vote this time, according to the exit poll, he won 13% of the community's vote in 2020. All right, so you are correct. Well, it says he won 20% of the black vote this time, and he won 13% of the vote in 2020 and 8% in 2016. It's low as hell, but your statement is correct. That is a significant increase. I mean, going from 13 to 20 is almost doubling it. When it's that damn low, you don't need many to double it, but that is accurate. If this article I'm reading is correct, I'm reading is correct, you are accurate. This is actually on Al Jazeera. Oh my God, really? I clicked on the first article that talked about it. Al Jazeera, really? Okay. I'm not saying it wrong, but damn, Al Jazeera came up. Opinion, Trump received 21% of black men's vote. I mean, apparently it looks like you're correct. I'll just say that. I can't find a site that listed any, by each individual year, but if Al Jazeera is correct, you are right. The result, a group of voters are willing to vote for Trump. No, that doesn't tell me. All right. So I'll leave it at that. I'll say from what I can see so far, I'll give you the victory on that. It does look like you are correct. 20% going back to the Caribbean island or Africa. Okay. That's not true. African American men. Okay, I seen that. Let me see here. If you went from 13% to 20, that is an increase. Now, he didn't increase at all with African American women, though. That should be telling, though. How did you do? Because if you went from 13% to 20%, and you really didn't do any movement at all among men, that means you made a big jump. I mean, among women. The women vote stayed the same. The black women vote stayed the same, but it jumped to 20% due to men. That means he made a big increase among black men. That means it's actually bigger than the 7% going from 13 to 20. That means it's even bigger. He did well with men. Men love Trump. I'll leave it at that. Men love Trump. Anyhow, folks, you guys know what time it is. I do appreciate the small amount of likes this evening. Talking about Matt Gaetz' situation, Republicans are literally defending a pedophile. PDF file. I like how you put that. Matt Gaetz is a PDF file. He's not a GIF or a JPEG. Matt Gaetz is a PDF file. I like it. Yeah, that is what's happening. I don't want to say for certain that Matt Gaetz is a pedo, but I will say the right doesn't care. They don't care. They believe that Matt Gaetz is likely to help Trump maintain his agenda and stay loyal to Trump. And that's the main focus. They don't care. They don't want to know if he's a PDF file, as you say. They don't want to know. I'm not going to say he is because he hasn't been convicted of it. They have an investigation going on, and the investigation may not even come out because the right does not want him stopped. So he might be. We may never know because the right is putting his ability to help deliver Trump's agenda over what may have happened to any of the victims. This loyalty talk is dangerous, says Furback. Well, in a case like that, where you got somebody who was an alleged pedo and you are so focused on him being loyal to Trump that you would rather not even know, yeah, I can see where somebody may view that as dangerous. And like I said, I'm not saying he is one, but the fact that the right don't even want to know should be concerning. The fact they did an investigation of this guy, and, well, we don't even want it to come out because it may harm him. Yeah. And that's an interesting point. Now, Soul in the comments says Matt Gaetz is going to drain the swamp. He may be the swamp for all we know. He has an investigation of perhaps sleeping with minors that he is preventing. Remember, just like with Trump, they're not fighting to prove their innocence. They're fighting so you don't know what the hell went on. That's what Trump is doing too, by the way. Trump is going to squash his cases. He's not fighting to prove to you he's innocent. He's fighting to prevent these cases from proceeding. That's what Matt Gaetz is doing. So how can you be sure that Matt Gaetz is not part of the swamp? If he got an active investigation, you will never know what would have came out. Do we assume that was a witch hunt too? I don't have any. I refer back. I take your comment makes a good point. They are against releasing the investigation report. Yeah, Chris, they are. Why? If you're going to give this guy the position of being America's top cop, why would you not want to know if he himself has committed some sexual felonies? Whatever happened to the law-abiding party? We're talking about Christianity in schools and morality. And they're appointing that. Make it make sense. Anyhow, folks, I do appreciate 76 Thou. It is your boy Tim, the handsome liberal, like we always do about this time. I got to step away from the live. Make sure I didn't miss out on any super chats, which I don't. Tim, whose cocaine was in the White House? Hunter's or Kamala's? I don't know. I do not know. Oh, I didn't mean to. I think I just hit something there. Whose cocaine was? I don't know. I can't speak on that. I don't know whose cocaine was in the White House. So why don't you look into it? How much coke did they find in the White House? Was it some keys? I mean, because that's been a couple years ago. I don't know. What do you want them to do? If you're losing means being of strong moral character, yes, I don't mind being a loser. Top cop, we should know everything. Yeah, and I agree with that. If we're going to have Matt Gaetz be America's top cop, and there are investigations that suggest he was having sex with a minor, that should have to come to a conclusion. But I said the same thing about Trump, and I obviously was wrong there. I believe that if you are the president of the United States, and there are major allegations against you that you may have committed crimes against the country, I said that should have to come to a conclusion before you can lead the country and make the cases go away. But I was wrong. Apparently, America thought otherwise. And of course, we will never know what cases Jack Smith and the rest of them may have had to present against Trump. We won't know because a lot of that's going to be squashed. A lot of the evidence you'll just never know. Like I said, Trump and Matt Gaetz. Both of them, they're not fighting to prove their innocence. They're fighting to make sure you don't hear what case was going to be presented against them. Take it as you may. And Timmy Tim said, I told you 2 years ago, nothing will stick. You are right about that. Nothing will stick. But it ain't because he's innocent. It's because we won't ever know. Anyhow, I got to step away. It's your boy Tim, the handsome liberal. I'll catch you folks tomorrow. Same one horizontal, and make sure I didn't miss anything on